Everybody, come on up close. This is being live streamed, so you have to be close to a microphone.
Juliana can't make it.
That's right, I got that.
Well, are we starting?
We're live.
Yeah.
7
There you go. All right. Welcome everybody to the Clermont Garage special technical advisory. We appreciate your involvement in being here. I'm Dave Mathis. I'm the deputy city manager here. I just wanted to thank you all for volunteering your time and helping out in this. This is very important decisions that you guys will be making, and we appreciate your taking the time and effort and everything you're going to be doing to help us out. So, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nathan.
All right, then I'm gonna immediately turn it over to Zane. If y'all don't know about Zane Ertel, he's
Hello.
right up there. And he gets the honor of getting started with a lot of stuff is to talk about the sunshine laws. Because not everybody's familiar with how they work and how that impacts y'all and how you communicate once we get outside of a official meeting like this.
Yes. So you all should have a document in front of you that has a information on sunshine laws and public records laws. This is super important just because any correspondence you all have with each other cannot be about this parking garage. Everything in the state of Florida is under sunshine. So everything is exposed. Every conversation that is had is subject to scrutiny because Florida has some of the most vast sunshine laws in the country. Additionally, anything you put in writing via text, email, etc., in relation to this parking garage is subject to public record. So I always caution, if you don't want it to be seen, don't send it. If there's any more questions, we can go over that. You all have a simple overview of what it is. I imagine most of these things won't be too pertinent, but we don't want anyone getting in trouble. There are monetary fines and potential civil fines for breaking sunshine law. So protect yourselves, protect the city, and we appreciate y'all for doing this.
All right.
I'd say that a lot of this is like you're going to be going out today and looking at the various two sites. It's very important that you don't talk to each other about these sites while you're out there. So just listen to.
Assuming we're gonna be out there. We're gonna try to get out there, but, you know, weather permitting and other things, we'll see how the meeting goes.
Okay, perfect.
That if we're all together, we can ask staff a question and all hear the answer.
Correct. You just can't talk back and forth to each other.
And that's actually a great question.
But we don't have anything out there when we're walking out. We don't have any recording. We don't have any.
I'm sure somebody can follow us with a telephone.
With a phone?
We discussed that option.
Yes, we did actually.
Our capabilities are not there. And to piggyback off of what Dan said, you also cannot use a third party to circumvent sunshine laws. So if you want to deliver information, let's say Jordan wants to deliver information to Anna about the design of the parking garage, and you use a staff member to relay that information, you can't do that. So be very diligent about that, and just be cautious when you're having communications. Yeah.
What about,
So if we're looking for an answer and maybe there's a subject matter expert, so like if we ask a question, do we report it here or we just don't ask the question?
You can ask questions to people, just no one else on this board.
Okay.
So,
And is there is the expectation we would bring that information and report who we spoke to? And
yes. And we have staff that can answer a lot of questions. So anything y'all need, everyone on staff is accessible. So reach out to them.
no, that was kind of my question, but also I guess if we have a question individually, we can email you,
Mm-hmm.
Dan,
Yeah.
Yes.
So whoever answers it will copy the whole.
Okay.
What the answer
Perfect.
was.
Thank you.
But you're free to talk to others.
Others not,
You know, it's not like
Not
you're in
each
a cone
other.
of silence when you
Yes.
leave the committee and you can't ask somebody
Mhm.
who you respect, you know, their
Yes,
opinion about something.
Is it appropriate to communicate with a council member?
You are allowed to talk to a council member, but they will disclose that at
Mhm.
some point, because you're ultimately making a recommendation to them.
How about the CRA, would the same thing apply? Because the CRA, like, obviously some council members are there, but there are other two members. This might go before they're there, but we should not discuss the parking garage with them.
The CRA is not making the decision at this point, it's the council, so the CRA is saying.
With the CRA.
Speaking of the
Speaking of
CRA,
Okay, any other questions about sunshine laws? Okay, at this point, I'm gonna give an overview, but the first thing I'd like to be able to do is have everybody be able to introduce themselves to the entire committee. So Todd, if you want to start.
Todd Howard, ex-councilman.
Okay.
Anna Sinclair, from Clermont, just general troublemaker.
Jordan Gershons, business owner in downtown.
Bill
And
Downs,
what's your business? Can you tell me?
Gertz Coffee,
Okay.
in the West End Plaza.
Bill Downs, owner of Sunbury 3.
Hey, Peter Groove, I'm with the Historic Village. I'm not, actually not on the committee, I'm just a member of the public.
Right, and so the way that will work is we welcome you to be here, but you won't be speaking at the.
No, I'm just here to listen.
Okay. Evan?
Evan Fracasso, real estate guru.
Rocky DeStefano, I'm with Chick-fil-A.
Keith Mullins, former council member and a downtown merchant for 22 years.
Outstanding. Okay, I'm Nathan Norris, I'm the Director of Economic Development for the city.
Tim Evans, owner of Clermont Orthodontics in downtown Clermont.
And you already know Dan and Zane. I did want to point out that Juliana Green is also on this committee. Her mother had an issue that required her immediate attention, so she's not likely to be here today, unfortunately. Okay, I just want to give an overview before we get into appointment of chairman and vice chairman who's going to lead this, and remind everybody why we're here and what we're doing. I've got a few notes to share. The first is why are we here? We have essentially a directive, a resolution that was passed by the council that they wanted this body to provide direction and recommendations to them on two things, really. One are concept plans, and the other is an estimated budget. Okay, on parking garages, that would be on two different locations we've identified. One is 7th and Mineola on the city land there, and the other is behind this building, behind the city hall. So the idea is, once again, they've requested plans. That doesn't mean one plan per site. It doesn't mean we're not limited that way. These are plans, so we're not limited to one idea or approach. The committee can say, well, we've got an idea for what would be an inexpensive option. We have an idea of what would be an expensive option. We have an idea of what would be well suited for a partnership with a private entity. We can do anything on this committee we really want. They want ideas. Okay, so that's the first thing. Those ideas, once again, are for concepts. It's not for a specific idea that's fully meted out. So that's it's not a specific plan, not just ideas. So they expect visualizations to show those, and they've given us some budget to try to generate those visualizations. So it's really going to be up to us to guide that, and they want estimates. So it's going to be, once again, it's estimates. It's not a precise budget. They're going to be looking at general ballpark figures is what they need. As you may know, the reason why they wanted to do this is because we've had a series of different issues come before the council, which are very complex. Let's say they're complex in how they have to be figured out And this is one of the, and the challenge is if they don't have a body like this to help sort of go through complex issues ahead of time, it becomes very difficult to do it just in 30 minutes up on the dais. And so the idea is they really want this committee to give them some good ideas for where they can head, what their options are. So that's our job, not to tell them what to do, it's just tell them what we think their options are in the best way we can. Like I said, it's largely because, believe it or not, designing a parking garage is a very complex thing. Okay, it wouldn't be a complex thing if it were out in the middle of nowhere, but as soon as you stick it in the middle of a town center, it becomes super complex because of its impacts upon everything around it. And we'll talk about that a little. But that's the number one reason, is because there isn't one solution to this issue. There isn't one way to pull this off. There's numerous ways, and then there's numerous impacts. And as a group, hopefully, none of us knows it all, so everybody can contribute a little and hopefully get us to where we need to be. The second reason why we have this committee is ultimately bound up in that first thing of saying, let's try to save ourselves time and money. There's been a common thing. I've only been here since last October, but people have struggled with some ideas that we had 15 years ago, and they haven't been implemented yet. Parking garage was one of those ideas that came out of the 2015 plan that the city of Clermont went through, and it hasn't happened yet for a variety of reasons, but the idea is let's save our time and money by going ahead and coming up with really good concept plans. It's a common problem that a lot of communities make, is that they don't focus enough at the concept stage, at the idea phase, and so everybody gets at odds because their particular issue isn't adequately addressed. That's our job, to sort of adequately deal with certain objections that some people may have to certain solutions. I already mentioned there's no perfect solution. We're dealing with a parking garage, and the first question that may come up is, do we need a parking garage? Okay, that's really not our task, but it's one of the things that we get to deal with is, how much of parking do we need? My background is somewhat been involved with these issues in the past, and I just want to say very briefly that parking is, I believe, is best viewed as a piece of required infrastructure for a downtown to work well, just like electricity would be, or access to water or sewer. It's an infrastructure item. Unlike some of those other utilities, it's something that works best when it's managed. Okay, and that's one of our challenges as a city right now, is we, our management, we really don't manage parking right at this time. And what has been learned over the last few decades is that it's actually, parking is really handled best by dealing with the notion of supply and demand. Just doing a core economic argument, meaning that if you've got a parking problem, oftentimes that means people say you don't have enough supply, and that oftentimes means because people aren't paying for it, or they're not, so their behavior gets immediately changed as you toggle back between supply and demand and try to get it done. If you want to read stuff on your own, or watch videos on the subjects, you're happy to do so. There is someone who just passed away about 1.5 years ago that was considered the guru in the United States on the topic. His name is Donald Shoup, S-H-O-U-P. So if you're just into this and you're wondering, how do we do this stuff? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I don't know if this breaks sunshine law, but I have those books, so if anybody wants them, I am happy to lend them.
Okay. And I've got his books as well, but he was the he was sort of the Babe Ruth, although he called him the shoot dog of parking. And he had Shoupistas, but he was a hilarious guy, so he's entertaining to watch. But I didn't understand parking until I actually met him and learned about how it works. So that may be something you want to do on your own time, before the next meeting. The last thing I'll mention about why the committee, and that is that because it does greatly impact the functionality of the downtown, that's sort of what I was telling you about, infrastructure. It's how it functions. It's not just how it looks, how a downtown can look does impact the functionality, but that's a thing. Now, the downtown, just going on a side tangent for a quick moment, downtown, just, I think it's important for us to keep the big pictures. We're looking at the parking garage issue. The downtown, whether we like it or not, is similar to how other cities' downtowns impact the overall city, and that is, oftentimes it's seen as the identity for the town. It's oftentimes seen as the heart of the town. And so how we do this doesn't just impact people in the downtown, it impacts the entire city, and how others beyond our city who may be visiting view us. And that's important. It's also, you have to understand that our downtown serves as an amenity for our residents that don't even live in the downtown. It is, the heart in many different ways, but it's a place of gathering where people come. It's where they want to entertain people when they bring people out of town. So it's not only our identity, it's an amenity. And the last thing is that we have been going through a comprehensive plan. In that comprehensive plan, we reached out to the community to ask them what their concerns were, and many of you participated in that. And it was funny because oftentimes it was difficult for people to tell us what was on their minds until we said, what's the number one problem in our town? And they said, traffic. And it was almost like a chorus. So what's downtown have to do with traffic? It's from a comp plan perspective, it's really important because you'll note that when you're in a downtown where you have an interconnected network of streets, you essentially don't really experience much traffic, real traffic. And so it's an oasis from people who get frustrated being on 27 or 50. So through the comp plan, we're finding, we're going to be looking at ways to build up the greenways network that we already have, and make it easier to get to the downtown. So the whole idea is that we've got to have parking infrastructure that supports the idea that people can come here and easily enjoy the experience of not having to be in a car when they're doing their other things they want to do. The final thing I'll mention are some of the issues that I think that we're going to have to address. Okay, and I would hope that this committee can sort of go about this somewhat systematically, but understand that as we go through what we're doing is essentially it's a design process. And for those, some of us are linear thinkers. We think of what's step A and step B and step C and D, E and F and all that. That's not how good design works. Okay, to design something, you actually have to go in a circle. You start at one place, which may be step A, but then you go to B and C, and then you have to go around the circle a couple of times to make sure that you're designing what works. Because as soon as you design something, let's say we're concerned about the height of a parking garage. As soon as you think you've decided what the appropriate height is, what's the next thing that happens? Okay, well, you might run into a budget issue that says, well, we can't do it at that height for budget reasons or whatever, and so you have to go around the circle a couple of times. So that's essentially what we have to do. We will talk about systematically, we can look at different elements that we know will greatly influence the design of a parking garage. Okay, one is the obvious thing we've already been tasked with, which is where's the location? And so coming up with what are the pros and cons of one location over another is really important. Okay, then we have the second item, which is going to be essentially the amount or the size. So, well, and one of the things we have to worry about there is, well, what's the demand going to be? And we can get into that further, but just the short note is we're looking at the demand not just today, but in the future. It's infrastructure. It's like building the water plant before we actually need the water sometimes. We have, we talked about height, cost is an impact. Then we have to think about the specific impacts upon the downtown as a whole, as well as adjacent properties, and on other things like even events. This isn't all just about physical things. It's sometimes how does it impact the events that we currently have that we enjoy and things of that nature. So when we think about impacts, one of the things to keep in mind is that a downtown, unlike most of the suburban areas in Clermont, has certain advantages and certain disadvantages in comparison to a suburban location. Okay, an advantage would be that, in a downtown area, it tends to be more vibrant. There's more people walking around than you would out in the suburbs. And so how you design a parking garage can either increase the vibrancy or decrease it. Because if it makes it, as an example, if humans bore really easily, and if they get bored, what happens? They're just gonna give up and they're not even gonna walk. We don't wanna walk around unless there's something interesting to see. That's why Art Walk is such a great thing, is it adds interest to where you're walking around. That's why between 7th and 8th is the core of the downtown right now, because you have buildings that create the charm of an outdoor room, and then it has narrow building facade widths all up and down it to keep our interest. We're like, well, no. And so there's all sorts of functional design details associated with how you design the parking garage that we'll be talking about. But it gets back to, if we've got to create an interesting place or it can kill things. If you're walking up and down Montrose, if you're walking east, where do people stop walking? Okay, they sort of stop walking right about midway in this building. And the part of the reason is because the charm of the outdoor room falls apart when we have two suburban buildings sitting back across the street. And we're saying, okay, we're coming to the end of what's interesting. Whereas if we go in the other direction, okay, it's like it's pulling you down the other direction, because that's where the action is. All right, so will this parking garage play a role in that? We also have the complexity well, I won't get into all the details, but it's there's also the impact upon funding that we have to, I sort of mentioned it was cost, but it's the impact upon funding. There are certain ways we can design a parking garage that will result in our ability to have a public-private partnership more likely than not. Okay, because those people are going to have certain interests. If we do a public-private public-private partnership, you're going to have to be looking at how does the revenue work, okay? And that's going to be an important consideration. So dealing with all those issues is going to be, I think, what we can, how we can logically go about dealing with a committee-wide design exercise. Because otherwise it could be really boring and lousy and not be much fun. That's the overview. Any questions about why we're here or anything else that I talked about before we move on?
I have a question on, are you able to, I'm sure you are, but like, will there be a part in the process where you share what the lumber yard, how many spots are they adding, and also any additional demand, maybe what's happening at West End, or, that type of stuff?
Okay. That's an excellent question. The answer is yes. So this inaugural meeting is designed to identify all those things that we have to figure out. As an example, I didn't forward to you the existing plans we have for both of the sites that we already have.
Yeah.
Okay, because I sort of wanted to have everybody have a sort of a fresh start, a fresh look at it and thinking about it. But clearly everybody needs to digest what's already been recommended on both sites, because we haven't gotten, there wasn't overwhelming consensus in the previous councils that considered the one at the City Hall or at this one. So we've got to come up with something better, I think, is the answer. And that includes understanding, what our current capacity is and what future capacities may be. I will say this as it relates to that. I don't want to cut to the chase too much, but the issue, the primary issue is that can help inform the amount that we could need in in a foreseeable future of a certain, till 2035 or whatever it may be. We can sort of go along that. But at the same time, if we look at what we need today, that's not a fair sort of thing, because the whole point of the reason why there's great interest politically in this is to get additional development. So that's one of the good things that we can try to figure out, and especially right now we've got resources we've been given where we can start guesstimating what that amount of need will be if we built out a certain amount of the downtown. And so that very much is within our wheelhouse of what we've got to decide. We don't have a long time to figure it all out, but I don't think we have that many questions in the big scheme of things to figure out.
Well, kind of following up on his, because my question is also, if you watch the city council meeting, there was some funding for the designs, and I was wondering if we also had funding to gather data, because I think that all the decisions that we make should be, for the design, should be data informed, and that would be either research by or consulting. So that was kind of my question.
Right.
How can we
We've been
get
given,
data?
I think the important thing is for us to identify the questions that we want answered that our committee can't answer.
Sounds
Okay, and then we reach out to our resources about how it can be done. So I'm less worried, they want to make an informed decision. Okay, they don't want to wait forever, but they want to make an informed decision. So I don't think asking for certain things, and once again, we don't need it to the level of precision. Okay, we need an overall idea. Okay, what do we expect on this question or that question? Is that fair? All right, other questions we've got? Anything else?
So just a comment, a couple things, Nathan, you mentioned about traffic. That's really a relative issue. I come from Orlando, and trust me, the traffic here is nothing. I mean, it flows, okay? Now, if you're a longtime resident here, and with all the influx of new residents, yeah, you're gonna see an increase in traffic. But it still flows. I can get on 27, I'm going, this is nothing. I can get on 50 now. 50 may jam up a little bit during rush hour, going to work, coming home from work. But relatively speaking, the traffic is nothing here, okay? You can still get around. And what's nice about this community, it only takes 5 or 10 minutes to get to anywhere you wanna go. As opposed to Orlando, it takes half hour, 45 minutes to be anywhere, okay? So the quality of life is better because of that. Now, in terms, you mentioned something, Nathan, as far as we want to attract businesses downtown, okay? Presently, the parking situation, what I see on a day-to-day, coming to work every day, there's ample parking, okay? Like, for example, the parking in front of my space at 7th and West Mineola Avenue. At times it gets full. There's spillover onto the lot, that's one block north of that. So I never see it a problem with parking during a normal business day. Or even on a weekend. We got the farmer's market, that gets a little busier. It's when we have major events. But the major events are with anything. When I was in Orlando, if we had a major event, parking is always a hassle with major events, always. So I think the main issue here is we want to promote businesses coming here. Just like I foresee that plot, 1 block north of 7th and West Mineola, as an excellent place for restaurants, a little park area. It's a nice plot of land. Granted, I know an individual or a family owns that, but if we could develop that, bring any parking for that. So I think the parking garage primarily is for future business to entice them to relocate or start downtown.
Yeah, and I think to demand, how much does Patrick's projected project at West End, how much is that? Is that gonna be any additional parking, or is it gonna be a need for additional parking?
Well, see, I would like to know, is it a surface parking? Are they putting a garage there? What?
No, it's a zero parking requirement, because of the way, he's got a grandfathered in where he can build zero lot line, essentially no parking requirements, be able to use whatever the city has available for on-street parking or surface lots.
So that's a net, like we need more for that, and then lumber
Yes.
yards.
16 apartments.
I agree with what you're saying because of your type of business. Because your customers have appointments and they will find a place to park. If you're a retailer that depends upon walk-in or convenience,
It's different.
I'm a half a block from you.
Right.
My customers have a parking problem, which means I have a parking problem. When I get to work at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, Montrose is full. The City Hall parking lot is full
Right,
because of the church school.
right.
So my wife, a lot of times my wife just drops me off. I can't park downtown to work.
What business do you own?
I have a wine shop right across the
That's right,
street.
okay, yeah,
But my customers wanna come in, buy something and leave.
right,
They don't have an appointment. It's a convenience thing.
right,
So they need to park close.
Right.
Because you're a different business, we have different customer needs.
right.
You know, they'll go to the mall and walk a mile, but they won't walk a block downtown.
Right.
So we have to be aware of attracting new businesses, but also maintaining what we need. Like, I got my mail this morning and a piece of mail belonged to my neighbor. So I took it next door. It's a salon
Mm-hmm.
and it's less than 1,000 feet. So how many parking spots does code call for? 3, 4?
So the thing with that though is that we change the code so that they can buy the parking.
Okay, an existing business who's been there for years, if they have a 750-foot store, what is the city code for parking spaces?
I think it depends on the business.
Okay,
Depends on the
restaurants are
business.
double.
Yeah.
It's just a regular retail service. It's somewhere around 3 or 4 spots, isn't it?
I don't know what it specifically is. It does vary according to.
It varies
it's-
according
okay.
to the type of.
Yeah, it's a very condensed, because if you go into like standard retail, if you make your way down 50, you're parking, like at a restaurant, you're parking 7 spots per 1,000 square feet. It's kind of like the general what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a 750-foot space, there were 8 women. And the store was only half full. There were chairs that didn't have customers. So that's what existing businesses are putting up with, is high density users in buildings that were built with low density codes. So we have a shortage. So not only do we have to build spaces for the businesses that we're trying to attract, but we have to go back and backfill for the businesses who are here.
Plus, you gotta have room for your employees. The
Yeah.
employees gotta park somewhere.
Yeah. Well, a hair salon, which there are 5 around my store, you've got a stylist, a customer, and a customer waiting. So it's 3 spots per chair. And a lot of these salons have 5 to 8 chairs.
So that's how you keep such great hair.
Yeah. I get my hair cut in Minneola.
They were probably discussing it
But
next
yeah,
meeting,
but-
not this meeting, but
Right.
So,
And it really,
as far as
that's-
needed information, I just like to get a census of downtown employees.
Yeah.
That's a big issue.
I have 19 total employees. I would say probably 5 or 6 are on site at any one time, or as much as 12, at one time.
Yeah.
And I also have the overlap of shift changes. So at some times I can have a greater impact downtown than, for instance, like a salon. You said
Yeah.
one
Well, I
woman
think
who.
even you, and then you go right next door to Paydays. It's that same continuation of.
Yeah, and a lot of so that's what I put in my application is to get the right, decipher what's going on at West End and what's going on at Lumberyard, which I understand is gonna have its own net parking. As far as to be able to discuss this intelligently, I need to know how many employees we have downtown on any given day, cause like you said, you have appointments, you see the daytime stuff. I see everything, we don't start getting busy till 1 or 2 o'clock, and then during the evenings, when all your employees are gone, and perhaps yourself is gone, that's when a lot of this stuff comes to a head. Now, 8 years ago, Monday through Thursday, nothing. Now, Monday through Thursday at nighttime, the top parking lot is full, 7th and Mineola, and the Hoya property is starting to fill up. It doesn't ever get full generally during the week, but it does start, you can see it building over the years if you're here long enough.
Yeah.
So,
and even.
I would like to
there's-
know how many of us who are just here, that no customers, not a single customer, how many parking spaces does downtown Clermont need now? And with all this intent to attract more business, like you talked about, how many can we project coming forward? Like you said, this new West End thing is gonna have how many apartments?
16, but I think there's also businesses going.
There's business.
Yeah, so that right there could equal 50 or 60 parking spots. If you go two cars for every apartment, possibly 3. Downtown retail, if it's a salon in there and they have 8 chairs, well, there's another 16 to 20 parking spots with customers and management and everything. So there could be hundreds of spots that we have, you know, because the city likes to, talk about how many we have, but we don't talk about how many we use, just what our par level is. Like, what is the par level daily here, Monday through Thursday, and then on the weekends from employees? Because I can say, I contribute to, you know, on a busy Friday night, I contribute to 120 parking spots.
Can I just, you mentioned downtown, and Nathan, do we want to use the CRA as what's considered our downtown area, or do we want to consolidate it to a different area?
Why is it important?
Because there's a number being asked for who is downtown employee wise.
I would think.
A couple different answers for you. First off is that I believe the last study was done 2 years ago.
Pretty recent.
How long was it?
Pretty recent.
Yeah, pretty recent. It will give us a pretty good ballpark of where we are, and it may be something that we can do to ask somebody to.
Well, in any survey that was done, either recently or in the past, no one's ever asked me how many cars, like how many employees I have, how many, you know, what's the overlap at 3 p.m. when I have a shift change between the three restaurants and the bar and the brew staff when they're going home. So there's no real, I don't have an idea of an ebb and flow here in town between, I can see it, but I can't put a number on it. I don't know how many people are employed downtown, and what the overlap is between the 2 and 4 o'clock hour or the 5 and 7 hour. When you have shifts leaving, especially in the retail space and the bar space or the restaurants like Pepe's, their dinner staff comes in probably around 4, and for that period of time, you have almost double the amount of employees that they have, maybe 5 to 6 at one time. Now there's 12 for a short amount of time. And so all this has to be, if you're going to say about where you put this thing and how many spots you need, we don't even know what our par level is just to staff downtown. And then we can talk about what the natural order of things are going to be going forward, like you said, the 2035 or something like that. If we do add X amount of businesses, well, if we have data on how much, like, I'm sure your wine shop doesn't contribute a lot to employee parking. You have 1 or 2 employees, but
Hello?
but I know during a Friday night I have 2 during the day, and then I have 4 at night. So then for a brief period of time, there's 6 people, and then plus customers.
I think this has to be part of the criteria, because what I'm hearing is that there's too many moving pieces to accurately tell how much is needed, to accurately forecast how much is needed. I think one of the design criteria for this garage is how it ties into a general transportation strategy, because I know the development that is going to Western Plaza. I was there at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those residents are not going to have two to three parking. They're not going to have 2 to 3 cars. They're going to have at most 1 or 2. How can the city encourage them to have 0? Because people downtown, I live downtown. Like I do have a car because I need it for groceries. But people who live downtown, we are very comfortable living a car light or a car-free lifestyle if you give us the option. So this has to tie into other transportation strategies to make sure that the parking that is built is for the people who come here to enjoy our downtown, not for us. And right now, one of the issues with that development is that, for example, the city council doesn't really have a strategy for things like employee parking or overnight parking. These are things that need to be discussed, but I'm not sure if that is really up to us. It's more like, but we can
should
take
be
into
aware of the
consideration.
Well, the city has a code for how far from your store,
Yes,
what counts as employee parking and what counts as customer parking. We should be aware of the code.
I think so.
When
Are we changing the code as well? So
I'm
we don't know
just
what-
saying
don't
we
know
need
what's
to be
coming
aware.
up.
I think there's
Just
several.
I think that. Sorry.
Let's bring it back. You were going to say
Sorry.
something. real quick.
No, I was gonna say, I think there's several codes right now.
Right.
There's like
Right.
grandfather
Okay.
compared to current.
If
I'll let you do it.
if I can just ask real
Yeah,
quick.
go ahead.
So you brought up a good point as far as our employees, where they park. And a parking garage, not only to promote future businesses and have them have a place for all those customers to park. I think a short-term solution, so we can give our customers someplace to park. Like, for example, I would have no problem in having my staff and myself park in that lot across, was West Vanilla on the north, maybe northwest corner. It's dirt, I don't care. I would direct my staff, and I will also park there to create spaces for customers. And if it's a short-term solution, we can create more spaces, we just require our employees, hey, you guys gotta park there, sure, you may walk a little bit, but it's good exercise. You know,
Yeah.
But it saves.
I wasn't really talking about the details about what, I guess what I said really too long is we just needed a census downtown of.
I think it's a lot more than we think.
It's-
Or,
it's-
you know,
Oh,
let me
yeah.
real-
To interrupt, and I'm gonna interrupt.
Okay, so this committee was given 60 days to come back with a recommendation.
Well, that's why I don't wanna get into too much of the
Yeah, so
details of.
I want to make sure you keep it at a higher level, so that ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, has a manual of parking. And that's how we do it, and we do it based on the parking recommendations of ITE. So, for instance, a retail might have 250, one space for every 250 square feet, an office maybe one for every 300. To get a downtown employee parking, we would have to probably use the ITE manual based on land uses, because while your business may be open today, tomorrow it may be a different business with a whole different parking plan. So it's hard to say. It's hard within 60 days to go around to every business and ask how many employees they have today, which could change tomorrow, it could change next week. It fluctuates a lot. So I would recommend using the ITE manual based on land use to give a rough estimate of what.
So with that,
But the
would that
idea-
guide say a salon with 8 chairs has X amount of, so in other words, future land use, like you're talking about, it's a salon one day, it's a bar the next day?
Correct. And it can turn into a restaurant, which is a much higher parking.
But-
So.
Is that something that you would be able to have for us by next meeting if we just said we have X amount of commercial space and that's broken down into these 3 different subcategories, and based on the current use, this is what, based on whatever that code is, this would be what the required parking would be.
We could definitely try to get you that. I think your next meeting is next week. So
But
the concern is that when a development comes in, we approve it based on the zoning.
Yes.
And the commercial, we don't say this is gonna definitely be a restaurant, or it's definitely gonna be a salon, because we know that changes over time. So we do it based on the average that's done by the traffic engineer.
But I think we need to know where we're going, but we also need to know where we are. And I'll play devil's advocate. The reason it's a salon today and a bar next week, because the salon didn't have enough parking.
Possibly.
Okay.
Would that
Yes.
count also?
You wanna say something before I intervene, cause I'm gonna have to,
yes, no, I'm sorry, like, I guess.
you gotta go,
mine-
Dan.
Yeah, I've got to go to another meeting. I just wanted to again thank you all for being a part of this. This is a big task, as you guys can tell. You're getting into the weeds, and it's going to be a lot to discuss. It is getting a lot of attention. We already have a news media out here today interviewing us about this committee and about what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be recommending. So it's a very important position that you guys are volunteering for, and we greatly appreciate that. Staff will be here to help you with any resources that we can reasonably do within 60 days. So we're happy to help in any way possible.
I do have one other request then.
Yes,
If you're able to get that together, would you be able to also give us a current count on our current available surface parking spaces?
So in June of 2024, there was a study done that showed roughly 11 parking spots.
And that's what I was gonna bring up, was that June of 2024 study is actually reasonable, and it'll answer most of the questions that were being asked here. So if you guys can send that out to everybody, because I'm familiar with it, I mean, I've read it. The big issue, and this comes back to what Bill's talking about, this comes back to what you're talking about. As we start landing on a number, wherever this garage is, it has to be large enough to accept that capacity, because we're gonna lose some surface. So if there's 100 spots here and 100 spots there goes 100 spots. And the crux of the parking study was that if we lost either that dirt lot or that dirt lot, which we were renting, then we would be over capacity during some of our peak hours. And I know this because I've talked with Bill before, and I'm gonna assume the same as for yours, that during those events, when there's that big influx of people, that's when Bell's dollars come in. Again, yours is, Mikey, goes to you. Those are the you know, I have an appointment, I show up at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, and that's what we do. But in those biggers, it's gotta just be percentages, and, you know, everybody's talking about what Patrick's doing with that. Nobody's even talked to him about the hotel that's coming behind that, that takes up the rest of the block and a half. And so, with the police department, Casavant, Dr. Casavant, he would like to square that off. They can probably give you the numbers of a rough estimate of how many employees and what that parking would need for that entire block. I mean, that's a big piece of property. If he redevelops it the way that he wants to, that's, I mean, that in and of itself will probably eat up everything we do in the garage. This will not be the last garage.
No.
I mean, it's just, we've got to land on something and land and be able to build it and do it correctly. But this is not the end of our parking issues, because there's a lot of land that way. I mean, it's hard to go that way because of the historic, but there's nothing historic that way. I mean, be honest. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
See how big his smile was as he was
No,
like,
it's
like,
You're gonna go check your spot. It's fine.
All right,
now, okay, I want to intervene because y'all are getting into things that are important, but then again, they're not the most important thing necessarily. And I want to get the context. So you may be wondering, well, how do other cities manage parking effectively? All right, and so I'm going to give you the quick little elements that you're going to see people using successfully. Okay, and the first thing is that, you know, the premier book on it is actually, its title is The High Cost of Free Parking. And we have free parking everywhere. And what that means is that nobody has, you know, we have plenty of business owners we know who have employees parking right in front of their businesses, okay, on occasion. Okay, there may not be any of you, but it's happening. And why? It's because it's free and they can be there forever. And so the whole parking reform effort happened because Stanford University's economics department was having a parking problem. And they found out that the city wasn't, or the university wasn't using the law of supply and demand. They said, well, why don't we charge until people aren't willing to park there? That was the basic premise. And so that's when they stumbled upon Donald Shoup, who was a UCLA professor who was, you know, from England. He was knee deep in all this stuff for a long time, but nobody would read anything because it was so boring. Okay, what he was talking about. And so he came up with essentially 3 different key elements that you'd have to have. Okay, and the first is that you should only charge for parking if you don't have enough, right? If you don't have enough. And so the question became, well, how much is enough? And the idea is if you're a retailer, let's say you've got the wine shop out here, you want a spot that's close to your business all the time. You don't want it to be where somebody says, well, I'm not going to come by your shop anymore because I had to park 3 blocks away. So what they come up with and they determined was what they call the 85% rule. The 85% rule was I could always, you know, at least there was typically 15% of parking spaces were available within a block of a business. If we can get that, all we got to make sure is that we're charging enough, and oftentimes it's called variable rate parking. We're capable of doing it because of technology today. But the idea is someone's never going to say, I couldn't find a spot. They may say, I don't want to pay for it. So, well, guess what? For a downtown business owner, that's not exciting to say, my customer has to pay for parking in order to come buy a bottle of wine from me, right? They would say, I'm not doing that anymore. Well, so how did they deal with that? They came up with a parking benefit district, okay? Because if the city manages parking, for example, and they get all the funds, they generally want to take it and do with whatever they want with it, right? But instead, the first time this was really done on a citywide level was in Pasadena, California, in old Pasadena. And they realized, oh, we have to have a parking benefits district so that all the revenue that gets generated from the parking goes back into the district. If you don't do that, it disfavors the downtown merchants, which isn't fair. And so so you have the variable rate pricing, you've got that. Then you've got the other issues. We have different types of parkers. Okay, we have some people who need to be there all day, okay, or at night, whenever. And so that's when you get into You know, you get dedicated parking spaces, you get permitted parking spaces, you have all these different categories. As an example, if you put one of these parking garages here, let's say you take the space that's right behind this building, where the city hall employees go. So the city all of a sudden would be, if they do a public-private partnership, what happens? They've got to pay monthly parking bill, right? To whoever's managing it, where they pay that amount up front, whatever it may be, somebody's going to be paying because the parking spaces aren't for free. Okay, and while we can pay you, Todd referenced the $3,000 that people can say, I'll give the city $3,000. Well, it's going to cost more than $3,000 to create a spot in one of these parking garages. Okay, it costs tens of thousands of dollars typically per parking spot in a garage. So that's a component of it. So that's in a nutshell the core sort of management techniques that other cities have used. This isn't controversial. You know how to manage it. It has to be managed, and that's the pain. Right now, we haven't had to manage anything. We just say, let's build another parking garage. So let's get to the point of we're tasked with figuring out recommendations for building another parking garage. Dan said, I think it was Dan, our job isn't to figure out parking for the next 50 years in the downtown. It's to look at one location with one parking garage and say, what should that be? That should be influenced by our needs, okay? They didn't ask for us, the council didn't say, tell us what our needs are. They said, show us a design that we can embrace, okay? But so I'm not saying it's irrelevant, it's just not the only thing out there that we have to worry about. We have to come up with what is the right solution on each of these locations. And that right solution isn't necessarily going to be perfectly matched with whatever we come up with as far as what demand's going to be at this point in time or that point in time. As an example, we could say the last proposal over on 7th and Mineola, I think had, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they had 3 different estimated budgets for 3 different heights of parking garage.
Right.
Okay, and those 3 different ones, okay, and so they're not equal. Let's say if you're the dentist next door, is it going to be 5 stories? Is it going to be 3 stories? Is it going to be 1? What is it going to be? Okay, that's another factor, not the only factor to consider, but it's an impact upon adjacent property owners, and so you got to factor that in. So and that would be, I know just in hearing people speak that having it too tall is a concern by some people in a particular location, and it wouldn't be in another location. So just that's why this is complex, and I want to make sure that's clear. But our job is just to come up with what's the best solution, and it may be different numbers that we're worried about, and that's okay. It's different. We get a different number over on 7th and Mineola than we get on the City Hall. They don't need to be the same. We just get to come up with concepts of what we think will work and why, and then justify them. So when I talk about the design issues that are perhaps the issues we have to address, there then becomes the opportunity for the committee to sort of prioritize them by stating why. What is it's just, and what we would call that in the design exercises, these are the design considerations and this is the priority. The idea is that if you're building a house, Tim, you've got you could say it's too small or it's too big. What's the perfect size of a house? There isn't a perfect size, okay? And so you're just saying that was really important that it be small, okay? Great, then let's articulate that. Let's say this committee says, we looked at everything and on this site, these were the priorities that we think should guide, not control. But this is what's, because you're giving a sort of a gut reaction, or you can give multiple ones, but we said, it's the same thing if we think revenue is the #1 issue, or it's not an issue at all, we just state it. We considered it, move on. We don't have to be wed to any one thing. So that's why I don't want to get into overall, do we need the parking and how much matters, but it just doesn't matter because we saw it today. I don't know. I guess it came out last night. The Winter Park, the Orlando, what's the Orlando Sentinel? I think came out, or maybe it was the Business Journal, came out with an article about Winter Park is doing another parking garage, and they talked about the needs and all that sort of stuff. And they're just going through the same exercise, but it's not the first, and it may not be the last. It's just where they are today. Any questions about that?
could a proper recommendation be, we need a public parking garage and then a private at the same time?
We can make any, we can, yeah, and what I'm saying is that I really think it's important, we don't have to have one recommendation. We could say, we think these are the options. Remember, you can get buy-in, both politically you get buy-in oftentimes when you give people, an opportunity to choose. Like, you can't make a meaningful choice with all you've got is one choice. That's not really a choice. It's like, it's either this or nothing. And that's not a very good thing. But what if we come back and say, well, we could see it working this way or this way or this way. We like this way the most because of X. Great, let's do it. But it's not the only way. Other questions?
In making a recommendation, whatever that is, you had mentioned about is there any site limitations known now about how high or how many floors we can go on either side?
Theoretically, no.
Now, I've heard rumors that on the site next to City Hall, there's underground grain storage tanks. It would be expensive to replace if they choose that site. I would be curious if that's true. I've also heard rumors about the 7th and Mineola, about underground utilities that would have to be moved. Or what's it called, part of the sales agreement when they bought the land was it could only be used for parking. So if there are things that have to be addressed that cost money, I think we should be aware of that also.
Right.
I didn't want to ask you out there because it's hot.
It is hot. I'm delaying that because we're making progress in here. So long as we're making progress in here, we don't
But
immediately
if
have to
there's
go
any
out.
special features or things, there's like, yeah, you can't build a skyscraper because it's sand.
I will tell you that, I imagine we'll end up someplace around here, but, historically, there was a desire that was expressed by the community not to go higher than a certain height in the downtown. Historically, Todd, what do you say?
It's 55.
55 feet, because this building is about 55 feet.
So
Is that fair?
3 stories roughly?
It used to be lower than that.
You can go 4. So when they did this concept over here, I think their max height, and it was a little bit, it was right at the top of the height, and I think they got 475. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was 475 parking spaces on that one over there.
That's
So it has to do with the reach of the fire truck, doesn't it?
It's really the people, because we've got the ladder trucks now that can go. I mean, so it's not an issue, but
But I know that was the issue on the hospital and Osprey Point.
where that has been resolved with our
Bigger
fire
trucks.
department. They've got all the toys now.
New fire trucks with bigger ladders.
Think, at one time, the mayor didn't want anything taller than a tree,
Yeah,
but he's not here anymore.
don't break Chief Fazel's heart and tell him he can't go buy a 200-foot ladder truck.
Right.
So there may be special situations we should be made aware of that would impact it.
Okay. I was gonna show you real quick, the previous proposals on both sites. Chuck, I'm having a hard time mirroring, and I don't know why.
We had changed the
It worked
input on the
well.
TV.
It should be, that's the correct answer, I think. Let me make sure it's on HDMI too.
So our taxpayers paying for HBO Max.
But we're paying for
Your tax
Netflix,
dollars?
Prime, Roku, everything.
Staff watch Hulu during the day.
Okay, while he's doing that, so I'll just show you the graphics. Those are the easiest things to read. But as Todd was saying, you could go up to 4 stories, and then the top story essentially is an additional level, the uncovered parking at the top, if you wish. You'll see how that was handled differently in the town.
And I think that this is going to go way off topic and kind of throw people for a loop. But our parking, we almost have to have a futurist discussion, because our need for parking and the way we're going to drive because of self-driving and because of the way shared use and all of that is going to impact us, is going to change the way that this garage gets used, probably right when we get paid off. But it will change over the next 20 to 30 years, the way that we use it. So I think we ought to be cognizant of that, of can we make it multifunctional, whether it be for parking of,
Like retrofittable?
Yeah, how do we repurpose it 30 years from now?
that's more of it is,
It's like, can we put solar panels on the top to power the chargers for the electric cars on level 3?
I mean, there is no supercharger in Clermont, no superchargers whatsoever in Clermont.
Yes, sir.
Is there one now?
Yeah, Tesla. That's Tesla dealership.
At the dealership. There's nothing. But for the longest time, because my wife's got a Tesla, and she's had to go to, before the Tesla dealership was there, she had to go to Walmart or something. I mean,
I have no clue to BP.
but is it? I don't think it's a, is it a supercharger?
No, it's BP, you put the hose in. you
Oh,
swing
well, I
it.
do too, but.
All right, let me just, for those who haven't seen this, we will ship this out to you along with some other information. But this is the 7th and Mineola site over there. And then this, I'm just gonna orient you. Is my head in the way?
You're good. Good enough.
All right, good enough. All right, so this is the art walk right here. You can see the Airstream right here. So this would be where Mineola is here and 7th is on the other side. And what you're seeing here is,
So that's essentially we're standing in front of.
Yeah, that's, if you're standing on my sidewalk, that's pretty much what you would see.
you're looking at. Right, okay, so that's that. I won't go into all the details too much, but this was the one that was conceived of as just being nothing but parking. You can put other things, we'll see other examples, I think, of how it could be treated. This is, if you're looking right down to 7th, here's a walkway that was designed there, but that's looking, you can see where Airstream is, but that's looking east. All right,
Go back to that one.
this one?
Yeah, that's right. No, right there.
Yeah, so that pedestrian walkway that's going to the right, Tim,
Mm-hmm.
would be in front of your building. So there's an agreement to have a 10-foot walkway that goes across the front all the way over to 8th. So between 7th and 8th, there would be a,
And you're saying that's 100% parking, no retail along the walkway?
Essentially, that's correct. That is all parking.
And that's but we can
Fine,
recommend
sure.
something different.
That's right.
Yes, I would
Okay, and-
strongly advise.
Okay, and yeah, just for terminology purposes, and it's not pejorative really, this is considered what is mostly a naked parking garage, meaning there's nothing covering it up, except, here the idea is to use art to cover it up. We can use art wherever we go, but it doesn't have a liner building of any sort. Typically, a lot of times, where there's important frontage, as an example, Mineola is a very important street to the downtown. So you don't want a blank facade on there, because a blank facade essentially is boring. To increase the vibrancy, you want to have something going on there. So it could be a business, but it's typically very shallow businesses that are in small spaces that might occupy it. Can just be the first floor. Some liners go all the way up on a parking garage. That's not really important for the urbanism or for how the functionality of the street is. But those are the different ways. And you'll see the City Hall one had a liner building on one of its sides where that side was important. But we'll see that. But so that's that. All right. Now, what's the advantage of a naked parking garage is that it costs less. You get more parking. For, if you're all about the spaces, you get that. The downside is that it's not as interesting to walk by. All right, and that can cause somebody to say, okay, I'm stopping, I'm not going to the next business or whatever it may be.
And so this is 5
You
stories.
mentioned-
Is it parking on top as well? So
Yes.
6.
Yes, all of them are gonna, all of them of, it would be hard to find a parking garage that doesn't have parking at the very top.
Nathan, you mentioned earlier that some designs could encourage public-private partnership and others could discourage it. What would this be? Where would this land?
There was a determination on that, wasn't there?
the public-private partnership, well, there's not a straightforward answer because it depends how much the city wants to put in. City either has to pay a huge amount up front or a huge amount on a monthly basis, let's say, to do employee parking or something like that, or they're gonna
Bond it.
well, no. So those, well, that's still paying. But the other issue is how much are people gonna pay for parking? As an example, if you go to Miami and you say, okay, well, how do they manage parking in Miami?
Not very well.
They get like a $2 fee just, they call it a service fee, just for getting into the parking garage. Okay, and then how much do you pay per hour to be in the parking garage? And so it becomes a, because anybody who wants to manage it, that's what they're looking for is the long-term revenue. And so we can design it. Now, it may be that the land is so valuable, like it is here on Mineola, for example, that all of a sudden that is very valuable as a liner. If you put a liner right now, as an example, facing DeSoto Street back here, looking, that may not be very valuable. It might be valuable overlooking the City Hall Park right here, facing your wine shop. That would be valuable. And so that's where the numbers start changing. Okay?
So they put amphitheater in front of it.
So that's right. Okay, and so we're just seeing this more daylight. This is on 7th, going down to the De Hoyos and the lake, going this way. So this is Dr. Tim's spot right here. It just wasn't there.
I said it really sucks. So you guys, so right now, you're saying that, because right now, he's got about a 5-foot walkway here, and you're saying there's gonna be 8 feet here?
10 feet.
No, it's 10 feet.
There's
From
gonna be 10
building to
feet
building.
tall.
Building to building, 10 feet. And then, so that's your, that's your frontage.
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes in.
So that's
But
building to building.
But if it was a
so-
liner instead of a stairway, that would give you a retail corridor.
It could. But then
You
once
still have
again,
to
you're
shut
beginning
that
to see how
stairwell
complex
tower,
this is, because
yeah.
as soon as you do that, they talk about the bays of parking. Just think about when you're in a parking garage, it's a bay. You're driving and you typically can go left or right. And then once you cut down a certain amount of footage, that reduces your flexibility to do it. And then it becomes more expensive. And then you want to go higher. And then other people are like, well, no, that's going to look ridiculous at my shop. It's 1 story on Montrose and it's going to pop up and that's what everybody's going to see.
What
So
our job
there's-
really isn't to figure that out. We're just trying to figure out the proper place for a parking garage and possibly and suggestions of what it looks like, not if there's gonna be a row of shops there, because those shops in a hallway basically are not gonna be, I would never put a business in a hallway like that, a 10-foot area, so that's not really appropriate for us to consider, because
That's part of the design though.
That's part of it, so you would put the shops, you would put them on
That's
the
what the art
seventh
walk
side.
was supposed
But like,
to be. Was a
but like,
row of art shops.
but if you look at these designs, it can only empty out on the 7th or onto Mineola, right?
Yeah.
And if it empties out on Mineola, I think you go in on Mineola and maybe come out, but you can't, if you take a right-hand turn or left-hand turn from out on Mineola, you're dumping all that traffic going downtown, not out of town. So to shove the building, essentially shove the ground floor back to accommodate future shops is, I don't think we have 60, there's no way in 60 days we can get all that information and decide whether that kind of structure is viable. Because we would have to have studies done and we'd have to have things redesigned to figure out if retail should go in this. Facades are one thing, but I don't think we should be concerned about a 10-foot walkway between two buildings.
Well,
Not at this point,
the
not
building-
in 60 days.
The building wouldn't move back, the shops would be actually incorporated into the building, so the first or second floor, maybe first would be your retail, and then the parking on the upper 2 or 3 floors would then extend above what those shops are.
But the limited amount I've studied about parking garages is that, and I'm not an engineer, but those cars have to get up somehow. They have to be elevated. So if you're, I'm sure we've all been in many parking garages, and there's long runways to be able to make those turns to keep going all the way up,
Well, that's when you do a helix style, which is kind of, it sits like this.
like the Orlando Airport.
Yes, so that as you park, you're on grade going up, The only actual flat areas is where you make your turn to go up to the next grade that goes up.
I mean, I don't have a problem with a helix, but I know that anybody who lives within 2 blocks at 10 o'clock at night is just gonna be hearing the squealing of tires going around that thing all the time. So,
Well,
I mean, that already
until
kind
they
of
get a
do.
ticket.
Yeah.
But,
no, I mean, just you go in Orlando Airport, you go up the thing there, it's your tires just naturally on the as your car is essentially sliding a little bit because it's such a steep turn.
Oh,
It's such a sharp turn.
You know, I think for simplicity's sake and to keep us on track,
Yeah.
let's just build a parking garage.
okay,
Don't-
but,
yeah.
and I would argue that's not your job. Your job isn't to build just.
Oh,
a parking
I know, I'm
garage.
just,
It's to build the parking garage that suits the context. That's why I said, this is complex, because you're balancing different things. One of the things is how it impacts the buildings around you,
right.
okay? And if this causes people to stop from walking to somebody else's shop for whatever reason, when it could be just the opposite. So, once again, nobody needs to get wed to any one thing, okay? It doesn't have to have all liner, okay? But it could have some, and you may determine that's really important, and we'll show examples of.
No, what my point was, let's just build, let's, we're talking about a parking garage. Let's not worry about having retail on the bottom floor or something like that. Let's maximize, we're gonna try to build a parking garage to maximize parking in the downtown area. So let's do that.
No,
No,
no.
that's
Because
not
it
the
can
task.
a badly designed parking garage will break the experience. Like the sidewalk, not the sidewalk, sorry, but the
This-
trails are
just to be
right there.
clear,
And
this is
that
7,
is how big.
this is Mineola.
Thank you. Like people don't walk past, I wanna say 60 feet with nothing going on, and a parking garage is just nothing going on. That's why you put shops. It's not just out of whimsy. You need to have something on the first floor in that particular area because that first floor is way too valuable to just be parking. That is
Well, that's revenue to
Gonna
pay
be-
for the garage on
Yeah.
rent.
That's right.
It's
There's
a-
also, it's super complex.
Also,
So
Tim-
it's not just about parking a
it's
car.
not our job to fix the complexities. That is his job. So we can just tell him we want retail. He has to figure it out.
Are there any, like, so things that we might argue about, or we might recommend that are never gonna happen? So for instance, what if I say, oh, let's do bottom floor, all retail, let's go 8 stories up? And you know that's never gonna happen. So those parameters, I don't know about for you guys, but would help me.
Yeah.
So, because my immediate thought is, let's keep going, like, but if we know that's not,
Okay, I don't think we know,
Mhm.
okay? I think we've heard.
yeah, because
In the
I've heard
past that-
3 stories.
Oh,
So-
no, it can't be more than.
55 feet is, I can tell you from sitting on council, going past 55 feet becomes serious heartburn for a lot of
But
folks.
that's.
But we don't care
separate
about
story.
that.
Well, it ended up to be 5 parking garage stories, 4. So what Patrick wants to do with the hotel over here, because they want to do an open air roof with the gazebo top would actually top out, even though it's an open air.
Higher.
So, he was within, I don't know, 5 feet of the max height. And I told him, I said, this is a fight that you're just gonna have to have, who knows? But that would be, his concept is the tallest building in downtown
Right now.
because of that. And it's just one of those that you're like,
So
okay.
what is his top height? Is it
I think it was 58 feet.
58?
And that's off the top of my head. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember. But it was within 3 feet, and he was like, "You're gonna argue with me over 3 feet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go
Well,
argue
it's-
with you over 3 feet."
Once it becomes 3 feet, then the parking garage can go up another.
Yeah, because
Another
to your
8 feet.
point, our job isn't really to solve the complexity. Our job is to make the best recommendation. And if we think it's 8 stories with retail on the bottom, that should be our recommendation. I'm not saying it is.
Sure.
I'm just,
I think that's fair.
I will remind everybody that there was a building that was approved at 70-something feet, and people howled about it. It was as unpopular as the lumberyard. Council approved it, I think.
Well, how tall is the lumberyard? It's gotta be taller than.
No,
It's still
It's
within
like
the
4.
55.
It's
Yeah,
within the
4 stories, I
55.
think is what it is.
40 something.
That's, the other thing you have to take into consideration is once you get above like 5, 6 stories, is the foundation for that to support that load.
It costs.
It becomes cost prohibitive.
We're really looking at realistically 5 or less.
Yeah, that helps just
And
to.
5 is still tall. We're taller than, you know, we could argue what the current council and where their heads are, but that's, we can, this committee doesn't even have to agree. We can say, here's the pros and cons of this, here's the pros and cons.
But
of
it doesn't make sense on either lot, whether it's City Hall or Seventh and Mineola, to build anything under the maximum we can build from a cost perspective.
Oh, yeah, if all you were concerned about is the most efficient cost per unit of parking, you're correct, but that's not all we're concerned about.
But rather than going 8 stories here, I'd rather go 4 here and 4 3 blocks further.
There you go.
But that's, you know, it's just like building you're a developer, right?
Mhm.
So it doesn't cost, if you have a 5-story building and you put up, 4 stories. And then you say, well, we want to add is the extra story 20% more or of the entire building cost, or is it a lot less?
A lot less.
That's what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
If we're gonna build a parking garage, it has to be to the maximum spot, because if you don't build it as high as you can go, then
We
the
don't,
second garage that's gonna come down the road is those
You wanna
spots.
say something?
Yeah, so, and I have a little bit of extra knowledge just because I've already seen this. FinProp goes into this, and when you multiply out the cost per space, that second story ends up to be about the same cost per parking space. So, it's a little bit less, but there's not a significant savings each one you go up, even though you get significantly more capacity. So I think once we get further along in this presentation, it'll do that. But FinProp, and I didn't meet with them, I didn't poison the well, I never dealt with any of that, so I just want to make that clear. But what I did ask was for them to be able to meet with staff and kind of give a concept of how to build it in the most efficient or in the most cost-effective manner, and they did that. And that's how they came in at, what, 12 million? Where the previous estimate was 16 million. So they came in and they tried to help the city come up with a design that was the most cost-effective. And
Because essentially you said it's a 5-story building
This one
Yes.
is,
with a top deck parking space, right?
yeah, this is well, it looks like a 4-story, but it operates as a 5-story.
because it's over the top.
So is the top.
But essentially it's a 4-story because we're losing the ground space that's already on there now. Same with City Hall, we're losing.
We're
that.
losing the parking available.
Yeah, so
No,
We're
you
losing
still park
100
on the first-
spots.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's not a
That's right.
guarantee.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But to get back to your larger point that you were making, the job isn't to maximize, to get the lowest cost we can, because the options that are actually before the council also includes doing nothing. So if they don't like it at 5 stories at maximum, efficiency, then it's not solving the problem that is causing us to have to meet. So once again, wedding ourselves just to one criteria is the challenge, and that's why this would be so hard to do just politically on a dais where people, imagine we were talking right now. Well, what should it be? So let's just get through these 2, and then once again, the idea was to use paint to make it more interesting, and you use paint or landscape to make places that otherwise.
That's the 10-foot wall.
That is looking toward Tim's 7th building is up here on the left.
That's
So
the 10-foot walkway.
that's right.
you could put some vines up the other side as well of that building.
Okay, so that was the cost per those. So
Well,
that,
if you look at the Universal, is it Universal? No, Disney Springs Garage.
oh, yeah.
That's right up there against I-4. They have that kind of fake vine stuff kind
Yeah.
of coming down it.
Mm. Oh,
Okay.
that is,
So this was the presentation that was given for, you can see this is behind the city hall. You see the city hall park, here's DeSoto, here's 7th, and this was one of the options. And this was, I guess it was 2 stories with a 3rd deck open for parking. And what you'll see is you get out here, it's a larger site. That's the difference there. This is what that option looked like at the corner of 7th and DeSoto, right here. So this is the church is right over on this corner here. This was also the naked version. Then they added, I wasn't here. What was this described as, Todd?
I don't remember what it was, but they put trees and fun stuff up top.
Yeah.
Well, they should at least have shade cloth. And if you've ever been to the Tulsa airport, but the top deck is all covered with shade cloth. And
Okay.
in Florida, I think that should be a law.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were doing an activation, a rooftop activation.
So was this roughly the same number of spots?
No, it's like 300 and, let's go 350.
And was there a reason?
You
that
got
it
your
was so high?
solar covered on
Probably
this one.
costs.
That is solar.
So that's the solar over on the right, up on the top deck. So there's different options.
So that
And
power
once
city
again, that's
hall.
what's gonna happen, is everybody's gonna say, well, what if we do this? What if, we can say, consider this, consider that, this might be the cost.
So the
That must be a
conversation on this one was that going too big would overpower City Hall. That was the kind of the crux of the back and forth, was that if you go too big, it just dwarfs City Hall, and that's our biggest building, and so that was it.
And they were getting,
It's an office building, not a monument.
I wasn't in on that argument, but it
Is that-
What was the net amount of spaces after we lose the parking existing there?
I'm not sure, we'll find out though.
Okay.
You know, we'll,
Todd, did
all
they have
these
any-
proposals, but my big point, just to the committee to consider, is that neither of these proposals was embraced. And so the opportunity is to come up with,
so when you're saying embrace, the council didn't love either one.
I would, you know, that's a difficult standard to really
Yeah.
answer objectively. But I think it's fair to say, if they had embraced it, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, because that's from 2021, I believe is what that is. 'Cause
But
I
it was
found
a
the
very
article
different
on
council
website.
too.
ultimately you're hurting cats, because
Yeah.
the council is, you have council members who don't believe we have a parking issue. You have council members who want it in certain spaces, whether it's there or not. And you have council members who are just practical, who are just like, I don't care where you put it, but we need it. And so I think that's where you ran into council running the gamut, everybody having a different point of view. I was kind of like, look, you know, land here, land there, I don't care, we need it. You know, I had a preference, but at the end of the day, you know, it was just to move it forward, and I think that's how this kind of got moved forward, was, you know, at some point, something's gotta be done, and the problem is, it hurts the downtown merchants if we don't get this done sooner rather than later, because we know we're gonna lose 100 spots, and we're gonna lose 100 spots in front of Bill's, or we're gonna lose 100 spots over here during that time, and yeah, we can bring in, you know, trolleys, trains, or we can do whatever we can to mitigate it, but it's gonna suck for 2 years. I mean, it's just going to, and I think trying to get the suck over sooner is better.
Now, Todd, on this stuff there, do you recall, did they have any proposals or designs where they turned the corner and maybe actually tied the garage into City Hall itself to make it look like one contiguous structure?
I don't think so. And again, this one was not done, this is not an apples to apples comparison. You know, if you went to it, and I don't know that FinFrock could even, I guess we could ask them to look at it and have it get you can get, because you can build there's pre-built sections, which is what FinFrock does, that's where the savings comes in, and then you can have custom. I think this one was custom, and I think that's where the price tag on this was. And so there's just different pieces and parts, so these are not apples to apples, for sure.
Okay.
Well, yeah, if I
Go
can
ahead,
just
Tom.
throw my 2 cents in here. When I was first, talking to Nathan about this, and talking to some of the retailers in the Clermont downtown area, I'm of the mindset, have this, but higher, maximize spaces, okay? Have it next to the city council building, we can maximize spaces and actually increase the number of spaces, be greater than having a parking garage on 7th. The thing about having it on 7th Street, one, it's gonna bind businesses. The business along the building that I'm in, you may say, well, you got that little walkway to where? Okay, there's nothing pulling people from the center of the strip, the center of downtown Clermont to 7th Street. The walkway ends up at a residential house. There's nothing pulling people that way. So these businesses are gonna be affected. And do you want to have the parking garage be the centerpiece of downtown? To me, that's not what downtown Clermont's all about. You know, it's got the charm. It's got, you can see the lake from wherever you stand down there. And the other thing too that was brought to my attention, I was talking to one of the consultants that were advising Nathan as far as where to put this garage. And I didn't think about this. They say you want to put a parking garage that it's going to promote people walking through the business area. And if you got a parking garage right at 7th and West Mineola, and say they're going to the wall, okay, they're not walking through the retail areas. If you put it in, you know, right next door here, they've got to walk through all the retail areas on their way to the water. So that's more exposure to the businesses there.
Well, so I'll introduce this later, but I have
Sure.
I have a study from, I'm not sure it was done by the gentleman, he might have been credited on it though, they might have quoted him, but, about how far people actually will walk.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're a dentist or any kind of professional is a time thing. People will go there, if they have a dental appointment, they're gonna go and they're gonna find a spot. If, you know, come hell or high water, they have their appointment. But on the retail side, on restaurants and things like that, there's options for people. If people have to walk, if they know to get to downtown, like Mineola and anything further, because that is the corner of the zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's so now they're going to have to get to my place, and this is where personal interests can cloud this discussion. Are they going to walk? Well, if a family wants to come for pizza and a beer, are they going to walk into the garage like that, go through all that, and unload their car with a stroller, go down an elevator, then walk 2.5 blocks or 3 blocks to my space, when they can go to another place, then park outside and walk right in? So there's intent.
Yeah. So look at Winter Garden. Winter Garden is a perfect example.
But Winter Garden also has many spots around that
Yeah.
garage, and so yes,
Yeah.
Winter
But
Garden
they-
is a great example.
Yeah, but they put Winter Garden behind all the retail, so it's out of sight. In fact, I parked in that park garage many times, you know, in the past, all kids, and I walked.
But did you try to park closer to, say, Crooked Can before you went to the garage?
Absolutely.
So, and that's my point. This is a lot of money. It's a lot of public money,
Right.
and it has to be in a place. And I wish it was a third option that wasn't near me, so I didn't have something that would say, well, this is my option because it's close to me. But it's a lot of money to spend for something that city workers are going to park into in the daytime. And on Monday through Thursday, not many other people are going to park in there. Because all the downtown businesses, especially on Montrose, they empty out. And now what's left is my spaces downtown and beyond, like going down the lumberyard. That's all going to be activated too. With a hotel down there and things like that. So the further you get away from that parking garage, the less impactful that garage is. And so if it's less impactful but costs more money, I think it's not. I would say if that's the only garage we're going to build in the next 10 years, then we shouldn't build it at all there. We should wait and see what develops, because in 10 years we'll know what's going to happen downtown. Maybe it has to go even further past me. Maybe it has to go down near the lumberyard somewhere. But if it's only going to be City Hall or 7th and Mineola, and four of the 7 days a week, it's only going to be used by city employees most of the time. That $16 million is wasted money.
This is a parking management discussion, actually, because again, it doesn't matter how many parking garages we build in downtown. If we don't manage it, we'll always have a parking problem. We need an overnight parking strategy. We need window parking strategy for employees, and that ties into the parking garage.
My employees will
But the
have one
thing
too.
is-
They will park around. That's just how people are.
If our objective was to build a parking structure that will draw more business, I think 7th and Mineola will have a more positive impact on the De Hoya property than building behind City Hall.
Okay,
As far
let
as
me
getting the
introduce a
De Hoya
concept
property
that
down.
isn't, intuitive, but it really does come into play here. And that is the difference between, like, if I go to Walmart, okay, I'm usually not trying to park super far away from the front entrance. I'm like everybody else. I'm looking for the closest spot. Why? Because the experience is completely miserable walking through a surface parking lot of a large suburban conventional development. However, and I'll use the opposite craziness, is if I'm in Paris and I get to park within 2.5 blocks of the restaurant where I want to eat that night, I feel like I hit the jackpot. Why? Because the 2.5 block walk is a joy. Okay, and that's why when we start talking about how does this parking garage meet the street, how does it fit its context? If it's not, they usually call it walk appeal, like sex appeal. Oh, does it have walk appeal? Does it have sex appeal? If it has walk appeal, we're not complaining about a block or a 2 block or even a 3 block walk if it's interesting and beautiful, okay, and has the vibrancy where I see other humans wanting to hang out. It's really interesting if you just come downtown and you start, especially when it gets a little more activity of people walking around in the evenings, and just see where people stop walking. Okay, like they don't want to go by the old police station, you know what I call the Darth Vader building, or whatever, it's coming out at you, you know.
Run out of street
It's sort of, that's where it stops. Over here on Montrose, it stops right in front of the city hall, and then you can go on 7th and 8th, and there's similar things. That's one of the advantages of the Patrick Bianchi's 821 Mineola project, is it's going to be making the connection from Montrose down to the water feel like that was nothing to go I get to Mineola and it's going to feel great, okay, because I'm not complaining about having to walk. The other issue that we didn't talk about that's probably should be on the issues has to do with shade, and to what extent does it provide shade. You can see it right now on Montrose. I love it this time of year to see the battles of people walking against one another in the sidewalk, and who's gonna stay under the canopy versus go out into the sunshine. People are fighting for that, and it's raining every day, all that other stuff. But the point is that it does, if we don't create a cool space to walk, people won't walk a block, you know, in some places. Because if you measure a block, our blocks are about the distance of, you know, the farthest away Walmart parking space. And so if we don't have that walk appeal, whereas if I go, you know, if I go down Montrose, no, it's pulling me along the way because of the different things I'm seeing. So I don't want to get all touchy-feely about it, but it's a science. And that's why if you want to know how to build a downtown, all you have to do is look at how, you know, you can go to the Mall of America in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and they knew how to get people to keep walking and walking. Your Chick-fil-A started in the malls. Okay, what do they know? Everything about the design of the inside of a mall was not guessing. All those little bubbles in the ceilings aren't just for security purposes. They're measuring where people stop and turn around and all that stuff. So this walk appeal thing is I'm serious as a heart attack about it. And that's what has to be done. If we don't make it interesting all the way around, especially in the core blocks, I brought this up just to mention it gets a little depressing. I don't want, you know, we were talking about the numbers, everybody's concerned about the numbers. Well, the idea is what could make this block better is if this isn't a surface parking lot, if it's actually buildings and places that you want to go visit for whatever reason. If it's just all buildings, we lose all that parking. How do we make that up so it's within close enough proximity for people to have viable businesses and the like? But it's undoubtedly better. We can go to, and what's the most interesting place to walk around in Lake County right now?
And Nathan, I'm going to interrupt you there because I keep hearing people say this. The fact of the matter is that you guys have an agreement with Jason Stringfellow that that's going to be a parking lot. That's all it's ever going to be.
Well, or else it goes back there.
Right, so he
He
gets
has
that
the
back
option to
for,
purchase, yes.
and he gets it back for $1.2 million. Everybody's going to howl. Jason's going to be happy. And so we keep having this conversation. Jason doesn't want that land back. He wants it to be a parking garage. So we kind of throw that, and I'm not being mean, but it's a red herring that you keep throwing, that not you, but people keep throwing that in. It's not an option. So we will have a conversation with him. But for him, it's not an option. That's not what he wants to do. That's going to be a parking lot.
It's gonna, or else it's gonna block anything.
Okay.
All 100%.
But let me counter that. Now, I've had plenty of discussions with Jason, and he's not here, he's not on the committee or anything. But it's my understanding historically, the city told him no when his first idea was to build buildings. Is that right?
No, he has, there is
He
an
had a
actual,
He was approved, he and his son was approved as,
I have,
Like there
I
was-
have
That was,
actually a
I was
beautiful,
actually invited to maybe go in there.
I've got the
it's a
development,
beautiful plan,
I've got the
But he
development
was-
plan.
but
cause he had an
it doesn't
intercon.
matter, either place,
Courtway,
Mhm.
tree,
the walkability of Seventh Street is the least walkable from Seventh, from Montrose to Mineola, is the least attractive pedestrian center downtown.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter where you put it, you're gonna have to include
Well,
street improvement.
but once again, our job is to come up with the best parking garage for Seventh and Mineola and the best parking garage for the city
100%.
hall. So that, I don't think there's not an argument about it. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance. It's the same thing as this mural. Have you all seen the new mural right here? Transforms the experiences walking by that area. Okay, and so what else would you do? Well, then all of a sudden it becomes really important. How do you close off the City Hall Park? This City Hall Park is almost never used. Okay, but it depends what we put, you know, how we deal with the parking garage over here, and that could influence whether it gets used or not.
Well, your council just shut that down. So
What's that?
I said your council just shut that down, so we can just stop right there.
Was used, first Friday, they would have a band out there every Friday.
First Fridays and every farmer's market.
Oh, well, no, but like, is a park, I mean, it's used for.
Yeah,
I
The
mean,
grass is
it's
trimmed.
like, well, there's no shade, okay? And it's not interesting because if I look towards your block of businesses, I can't see in the buildings. So it's like a blank facade. And then if I looked over on this side, it was a blank facade forever. At least now I've got paint that looks a little interesting. And then if I look toward the south, I see all the power facilities. And it's just not a place where if I look to the city hall, I've got these nice steps, but it's always these blinds. I was supposed to pull them up today actually, but I didn't. Anyhow, these blinds make this like a blank wall, so it's a dead space. So we can change. You know, what I'm saying is that just through the design elements, we can change that.
Oh, there's been several drawings for parks.
We did.
All of them ugly.
We did. We just had a beautiful one, and it was $500,000, and the city council just shut it down a month ago. I was, oh Lord, I was like, really? Y'all just shut that down?
So wait, they've already paid for it, or they just allocated it?
No, we had a concept for awnings over it with a stage, so a permanent stage so that you could use it all the time. And for whatever reason,
It's more of a lawn than it is a park. It's just, yeah, it's not.
But that
a
was-
park would be generous
yeah,
right
putting,
now.
well, they
so
were talking about putting.
It's no
pavers out
wonder it's
there.
not used right now.
Right. But that's right. But it's partially because in a downtown, one of the key elements is that feeling of an outdoor room. And it hasn't been defined in a long time because.
I remember when City Hall was built, Jenkins Auditorium was still there.
So we're not fixing that today. I'm just saying that's another element to how do you deal with the parking garage on City Hall. It should enhance the opportunity for this to be a special gathering spot, which I think it will be. Right now, most people say, well, where's City Hall Park? I'm like, I don't know, where is it? You know, well, I guess it's by the City Hall, but we don't need to go on, our job is just to do that. So,
Nathan, if I could comment on something that you said that really makes sense, the Walmart parking lot analogy, that's really true. We're not building a Walmart parking lot. In other words, we're not worried about parking close. And if you park far away, we have to walk past this asphalt parking lot. It's the latter that you were talking about. That's exactly what most people do when they come down to downtown Clermont. Like my wife and I, you know, if we go to dinner, whatever, literally, and if I just come up here real quick, let's say we put the parking garage here. This is the area. We would come in, let's say we're gonna, where's your shop at, your restaurant?
8th and Main. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, 8th and Main.
Right there? Whoa, you're right here. So like my wife and I, we go to downtown Clermont for an experience. So we come here, boop, boop, boop. We would come over here, we'd walk through the walkway here, and we'd be introduced to all these businesses down here. We would have dinner at your place. Then we would go down here, walk along here. So it's more of an experience. It was nice about drawing. If we have it here, people are drawn to all this experience, new businesses. When people come down downtown Clermont, we're not just going to one place. We're going there for an experience. And I really want to try to keep the charm with it.
Well,
We-
I agree with your
Yeah.
concept, I think you're correct, but if you came down with your wife and suppose you had a kid and you had a stroller, you would first check to see if that parking lot across the street from you is empty. You would not intentionally park further away on a summer night when it's 90-some degrees and then walk 3 blocks. It would be your second choice.
Correct, but it's still a choice.
I know, but right now we have a parking lot that costs $125,000 to put in, that's right across from my business and other businesses. And people will go there first. And then
Right.
when that's full, then they will go to the parking garage that costs the city $14 to $16 million to put up. And so if you're gonna spend the money, I think it's highest and best use first. It's just like, it's a job of any HOA to keep property values up.
That's the crazy thing about that parking lot that you bring up. That parking lot will fill up before the on-street parking. So
Yeah.
You talking this one? Or the-
Yeah.
that main parking lot fills up before the on-street. As easy it is to get into those parking spaces, that parking is just human nature for whatever reason. But I was here, went and had some squishies at his place the other day, and I laughed because I was like, holy cow, that parking lot is full. But their on-street parking, both parallel and the other, was open.
Well, parallels,
think
let people like
because
parallels.
visiting
I think it's
stores
because
and
most
hot
people are
dogs.
probably going to the businesses that are along on the south side.
No, it was just packed open. So I don't know what you had going on, but there's a pile of people there.
Yeah, well, when I come to work in the morning, sometimes I swing by the post office, and as I drive down Mineola, I'm always amazed at how full that parking lot is at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
I think
And
we
after
keep,
it's all employees.
I think
sure
we
it is.
keep getting into this adversarial about which spot's better, and that's not really the scope of what this committee is for. It's finding the best solution for both spots and letting council pick.
That's right, just, once again, but I think it's important that everybody have the discussions here, so that's why I didn't wanna clamp down.
Well, essentially, that job is mostly done. We could pull around the edges with what either parking garage would look like, whether it's gonna have solar panels or a rooftop area, because the money's already been spent on, or at least some of the research has already been done on both locations, as far as, 7th and Mineola is the newest one. But back in 2021, someone put a lot of time into the one behind City Hall. And so none of us are designers or engineers. We can say, all right, well, we want more art. Maybe we want a facade. Maybe we want a rooftop or respite area for people to go in, things like that. But what are we going to do to either location and that's what I'm trying, when I started out talking earlier, it's like, what are the parameters we have to decide if both locations already have an existing plan in place that need to be tweaked, obviously for aesthetics and things like that. But I'm not a road engineer. I don't know if it's better to empty out the 7th and Mineola garage on 7th or whether it should all go out on Mineola. I don't know. It's not my purview, and I have no experience in that. So I don't think anyone here does. So aside from recommending maybe by a consensus vote which one would be the best location, it's like, what is our job in 60 days? And that's what I'm worried. I don't want to have study after study done, because that's already been done. What's our job in 60 days?
There's a couple, there's a lot there. First thing is that, the job isn't to say, necessarily which one's better.
Yes.
It's to come up with plans and estimates and give your reasoning why you chose the plans you came up with, right? So it's not, here's one, this is what you gotta do. It's, no, here are your options.
Well, you've done this a long time, right?
Well,
If we were to say we don't like any plan we don't like the existing plan for 7th and Mineola, we want a new plan.
That's right.
How long would that take to develop a new plan, go out, because it wouldn't be FinFrock, it'd be somebody else.
The concepts, not the plan.
Well, the concept, as I said, the
no.
concepts
Well,
have already been
as
done.
as an example, I was involved in the most recent, in the 821 Mineola. I was involved in the design process, helping sort of guide that. In that case, those were all concepts. That wasn't like those weren't architectural drawings for, even though it had precise detail. That was a concept. That was a very heightened level of concept. We could come up with something less than that. But remember, they're gonna see the different concepts and then, they're gonna have to make a decision about, okay. Oh, let me back up. You don't know, we didn't talk about this before. The intention of the council is to put out an RFP for someone who's gonna build a parking garage and potentially do a partnership, whatever. They're gonna put out an RFP for somebody to build something.
After us, right?
After us.
After us.
To see, you know, if there is someone gonna be able to, come in with a real bid, just like Finfrock came and said, we wanna be able to do that. I expect Finfrock and others to be in that RFP thing. So they're not gonna be involved in our process. I know that sounds crazy, but that's a legal thing that would potentially disqualify them from participating, and we want them to be able to participate in that. But we have an RFI out, correct me if I'm wrong, Zane, but we have an RFI out right now for someone who's simply gonna be able to provide technical expertise at detailing what that RFP is gonna say. Okay, and that's my understanding of how it works. So that's not our job. What we can do, our biggest thing is to raise the issues, okay? And that is you've already raised a bunch of questions that we don't know answers to today, but we need to get those. We have the flexibility as a committee to spend money to get some answers that are ballpark answers in a relatively short amount of time. We have.
Do you have a concept of what we would spend that money on, like?
We could spend the money on visualization, so somebody is actually going to be responsible. It'd be ideal if the same person that's doing the visualization on 7th and Mineola is the same doing it at City Hall. And you
Do we have so you were saying that the 7th and Mineola, they came back at a lower price because some of that it was already pre-constructed?
So what Finfrock specializes in is precast sections.
Yes.
And so instead of trying to design a very custom, here's your ramps, here's, your parameters, Finfrock worked with the city and said, hey, if you sketch this out and you do it this way, here's how you maximize this at the least amount of money. And for those who don't know, I'm fairly conservative fiscally when it comes to that stuff, and that was important to me, was to get the most garage. For me, I was a maximum garage. Let's see how many parking spaces we can get in here. Let's make sure that we've got plenty of handicap. We get a lot of complaints of the handicap and where it's at, being downhill. That's one of the things I love about the 7th Mineola is that it's right in that heart. You can really go over to Sun Creek and not have to go downhill. You can still get to Montrose and not have to go up the hill. And so as a council member, I had a lot of complaints about the way our stuff was set up. There's things that you don't see on here with walkability. Having the east-west corridor, and Patrick has agreed to run it up through his property and actually tie back into Montrose. Long-term, something's gonna end up happening with the post office property. I mean, that's already well over its useful age. That will be bought. Way over here, it's possible to bring that east-west all the way over to West Avenue, so you'd be able to go walk from West to 7th. Yeah, so Patrick's already essentially agreed to bring this all the way across here, because the walkway's already here. He's gonna bring it through here and kind of kitty corner it up to Montrose. Depending on what happens with this big piece of property, you could bring it all the way across and you'd essentially have walkability from one side to the other, along with the art walk if you get to the Hoya property from north to south. There's some really cool concepts, but you can't get there. We have to build a garage. This stuff, city put in an offer on that property. It's a reasonable offer. It was a fair market value offer, and the Hoyas just haven't taken it yet. So are we ever going to get a full north-south art walk? We don't know that, hopefully, sure. But what is the De Hoya property going to look like? Certainly, smart money is to wrap it up the art walk across West Mineola and have an entrance or have something on the other, along with a beautiful facade overlooking the lake. I mean, it's the most valuable piece of property left in downtown Clermont.
But is it fair to say that the parking garage behind this building is more expensive for fewer spots.
The way it was designed, yes. Could Fred Frop do something
Okay,
different?
okay,
Probably.
yeah, so that
They
could be
want-
modified if this, because it sounds like 375, so they were getting 125 spots per floor. So if we could go as high as what we're doing on 7,
Right.
we could theoretically get more parking spots right there.
In theory,
It
yes.
just would have to be redesigned. And then I agree with the walkability.
And then the conversation will be, and we don't know this, will be water capacity. So water capacity on this side of Montrose goes to Center Lake. Water capacity on that side of Montrose goes to Victory Point. So
That's a,
depending on capacity over here, can that affect it as far as the footprint? And it does, and that's something that is beyond, you know, I'm not an engineer, I don't know what that is.
Todd, do you remember why the city council didn't do the parking garage behind City Hall? Like, what was was it just the money?
It was really, really expensive, and they just never landed on it.
Well, I'm sure it's not cheaper now, but
It's-
that was it, just the money?
It was the money and the concept of not being able to go all the way up. They just couldn't get, again, you're hurting cats.
Just kept kicking the can down the road.
Nobody
I
wanted to
just-
spend the money.
Nobody
I
wanted,
kinda
nobody wanted to
wanted
be
to
that council
emphasize-
member that
yeah.
said, I did it,
So,
and then to be.
It seems like back then there was a solution,
Roasted for it.
and the solution wasn't taken. And I heard about the same thing about the vault, that the fabled vault, I left the note, it's actually there and not underneath the park.
There is, oh, yeah. So there is a water vault over there.
Yeah.
Exactly where it's located, I do not know. The conversation was that it would be adjacent. Exactly where it's at, we don't know, but you would have to deal with the water vault. But is the water vault big enough to expand that parking area as well? Because if your impervious space grows, you have to have capacity. So that capacity conversation has not been had that I know of, but
I mean, yeah, for the city council, if they really wanted to go, if they are gonna vote, regardless of what we say, for it to go behind City Hall, that's fine. But it's gonna be more expensive, and I'd like to know the true reasons and why it wasn't done to begin with, because essentially, if it's the inclination of the current city council to put it behind City Hall to maybe have the least offensive parking garage you can have, right? Then this job is already done for us. We can talk about what it's gonna look like and maybe the special features it may have updated to current things, but right now, I don't know why we don't have a parking garage under construction behind City Hall. That's and if there's a real fundamental reason aside from the money, then we as a group should know that. So we don't spend our time and do all this brain damage and arguing back and forth about which location is best. If the true location really should be behind City Hall.
Question for you.
But-
And then we can just decide what it looks
As high as City Hall is, how many floors could you build to at least match the height of City Hall?
probably on this one, probably 4. And I think that the nice
So it'd
part
be
about,
comparable, right? 4, and then your parks.
so that one was 5, this one would be 4.
Before, okay.
So
And-
net 3.
well, right now it's 3. I think some of this, the interesting part to go through this is there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. I am of the firm belief, and I'm not opposed to it being back here, but I'm also of the firm belief that 7th and Mineola is better long-term, knowing where development's going to go. That's my personal belief. I have had arguments with Allison over this. I'm sure I disagree with Nathan on this. But from a future growth standpoint, I think that is a better location. And I think that's the argument that we have to go through. We have 4 business owners here.
Yeah, see.
So we have 4 business owners who are all gonna bring a unique perspective from a unique business. And I think that's for us to all land on, you know, we're not all going to agree. There's gonna be somebody in this committee that's gonna be like, they all suck. And that's fine. But ultimately, we just need to be able to try to move in a direction. And, you know, like I said, I'm not opposed to it being back here. I've been through a little bit more time, effort, and energy on this one over here. So, I mean, I obviously have my beliefs. But if this one turns out to be the committee, I mean, I stand behind it and say, yeah, I was on that committee. This is where the committee went. Had some disagreements, but this ultimately was the best location. And I think we have to move that direction.
If I may, like, I think we keep getting hung up on why hasn't the garage been built before, and as somebody who watches city council religiously, it is very hard to figure out exactly where they're going, and that is current city council. This city council is completely different to the one that took the decisions that they made before, so who knows how they would have voted if they had had this proposal for this particular parking garage behind here. Regardless, our job, again, is not about the placement of a garage or the best spot. It is to think of the best designs that tie the best with downtown for that specific spot. And I think we keep getting hung up on that. And cost is important, but it is not the only important factor, I would say. The aesthetics of the place is very important. The reason why Mr. Patrick Bianchi got that development approved in Western Plaza is because it looks beautiful. Like, there is a lot of utility when a building looks beautiful. Like, a building that is ugly can just break the experience of it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and I think I came in here, and probably it sounds like you too. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't
Mhm.
care. Like, I want the best thing, but inherently,
mhm.
I can't see how the city, the parking garage behind this building is inherently better if it's smaller. And I also wasn't impressed with the look of it, to be honest. The 7th Street, the renderings looked better, like they're
Well,
more interesting.
They're newer.
And-
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're
yes.
newer and
And I think that's
but also, I would say,
subjective too.
Yeah.
I
100%.
I'm not sure anybody's gonna say that's a beautiful parking garage.
Yeah,
It looks good, but you're not gonna say, wow, I
No, it's a
love that
parking
structure.
garage, yeah, but I do think like the art, the use of the artwork and then whatever else we come up with. But if they could show me a visualization, which I know we have money for,
Mhm.
of the city hall that was bigger and beautiful,
Mhm.
I think I could be pulled there because like typically we came down for a food truck. I parked on 5th as far away as I could by the church, in the church parking lot, and walked.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. But I don't think I'm the normal person. I think the normal person is gonna circle until they find the closest spot, you know? But what I'm looking for is biggest bang for buck and the beauty element too. But right now, it seems obvious that 7th Street has both.
Well, and that's part of the job of this committee is to design them.
Mhm.
Okay,
So create what they are. So whatever they are right now, they can change entirely. And
good, okay.
y'all's purpose is to design them.
Yeah, that helps.
I will make an observation. It's clear, based on what we've heard today, I think, that cost is something that's very important, okay? We knew that coming in, but we also know it's important moving forward. Okay, y'all don't have to make the decision about whether it's gonna be, paid for or not. You just have to come up with the best thing. And I would recommend, based upon what I've heard, is that you do give an option, which is if we want to maximize the amount of parking we can get for the dollar, this is what we would do. I think you also need to look at it as, I'm not going to go into it right now. This is objectively, like I can come up with objective reasons why this is uglier than what has been done by the Thin Frock proposal. Okay, there are different elements that make you say, ugh, that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to go into that, but it's obvious. So you had that gut reaction. So the gut reaction would be, what if we had something that was, if I own the land across the street, I'm excited that it's coming in.
Yes.
I wouldn't be too excited if this were right across the street from
It
mine.
looks very utilitarian.
1980s Boca Raton.
It's pretty good, yes.
You're just kind of like, ooh, okay.
All right. So, I want to try to wrap things up sooner than later, unless you get. But we need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman to run the future meetings.
What are the duties of the chairman and the vice chair?
They will serve as essentially the moderators of the future meetings. I didn't mean to inject myself so much. I just wanted to try to be efficient about raising the different issues and get us on a good track, which I think we're in a better position than when we started. But regardless, the idea is that, yeah, they would essentially guide the conversation. It may not be any different than what we had today, but we were tasked in the resolution to identify a chairperson and a vice chairperson. So, does anybody want to make a?
Since nobody's volunteering, I guess I'll be fun.
We gotta nominate.
Oh, you're not perfect.
I'll defer to Todd's.
Yeah, you just have to do a nomination. I'll nominate, Rocky to be chairman.
I would second that.
I don't know
Second.
the rules, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, so you get a nomination, a second, and then take a vote.
So you got a second, take.
We got a second from whom, so we're keeping it.
Second.
It was Bill.
It'll be fine. I know, I'm chair on a bunch of a committee, so it's not hard.
Okay,
So, do we take a vote?
take a vote.
All in
Aye.
favor?
All in favor?
I,
I'll make a nomination for Keith to be vice chair.
I state my mind.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
All right.
Wait, that's done. All right.
What
That's the
are,
second.
what are the perks? Are there any perks?
just so
You get the park close to the building.
Hey, you will be the guy who has to give the presentation.
Yeah, you get a parking
You're
space.
gonna be like, well, Rocky DeStefano is the one who led the committee.
I hear there's a budget, and I don't see sandwiches.
I didn't tell you that we're gonna have a dedicated parking spot for the chairman of the parking garage.
Sold.
Special technical.
You know, it's funny, cause like we've come downtown twice in the last 3 weeks and went somewhere else. Because there wasn't, we really couldn't find parking, or, you know, so it's like odd, because like, I think there's several problems.
The sneaky parking spot. I'm gonna give away my sneaky parking.
That's the customer
You are
that
being
says, I
recorded.
have a parking problem.
That's fine. Everybody can know, most people know about it.
Oh.
So the sneaky parking spot is actually parked in essentially the dirt lot next between the boathouse and Victory Point. And that puts you right there on the path, and that's just all checked. And
That's where
then
we
you
park.
come in, so for me, I live off 12th Street, so that's my always, if I know it's busy here, if I'm coming down from like food truck or, you know, farmer's market stuff, I'll just park there.
That's
So I
right.
know I don't even have to look, I can pull right in there, boom, I'm there, and I'm here to walk around anyways.
What do you see at your business as far as like, do you get that, do you feel like you lose customers because
I don't feel like I lose customers. My customers love walking all of downtown. So we get a lot of foot traffic, people who've been from Costa Nostra or farther down. The wine shop, we have people who come all the way over to our side of town after they visited you with their wine, things like that. So
It really depends upon what business you're in,
we're open 8 to 4.
cause a cup of coffee is,
Okay, that's,
what, a
he's
pound
open
at
8 to
the
4,
most.
so
so.
he's got, it's less of an issue.
A case of wine is 38.
Cause like I was in Clermont, Dan,
Depends.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever wanna
spots for
talk to the
three
CRA.
hours. Sit there and
The
talk.
CRA
Yeah, just sit there.
ultimately is
And
taking
you
over
hope they
parking
go
and make
third,
all of
you
this,
hope they go.
they need to make all of the on-street parking 2 hours or less, and that will stop employees from parking out there.
Well, you never park in front of your business, you park in front of your neighbor's business. That's a downtown tradition.
There you go.
But
One of the
bringing the
things,
CRA into the parking conversation allows them to start making those rules and those recommendations, and that's the ideal way to do it. And that Nathan touched on that earlier, was that somebody has to start managing.
well,
is it the CRA or is it
there
the
has
parking
been
authority? Though?
4-hour parking downtown at least twice in the last 30 years. They put the signs up, it ruined them, they took them down, they put them up. So it's gone back and forth.
Why did they take them down?
Before? They did it to a 2-hour?
They may have been two, yeah, because the sewing store had 3-hour classes. And the women, by the time they unloaded their sewing machines, they came in and sewed, they had to go move their car. So it was, sewing store's gone now. So I mean, it's really industry specific.
You have several.
If you have 2 hours,
Same
pick an hour, 2, 3, 4, that means somebody has to monitor it.
Sure.
So do you have a police officer who can come downtown every 3 hours and pass
They
out
do
tickets?
bicycle ones, and it's
Yes.
fast.
So I mean, there's
There's
not
money
bad.
to be made.
We used to
There's
have
a
loading
solution.
zones.
All right, now,
I love this. This is perfect.
Yeah, when do we, okay, when and how do we meet?
all right, and I'll, yeah. The intent was to meet weekly at the same time. This group, unlike the Bishop Field Committee, actually can be here at a particular time where it doesn't have a conflict. So if we could have this meeting every week at this set time, that would be ideal. I can,
Is it possible to zoom in or in case we are out of town or?
I think it is, we can, yes, we have that capability. So yes, in fact, next week, I'm gonna be at a funeral, so I can't be here, for it. That's okay. Zane will be here. I'm sure Dan Mathis will probably try to be here as well, from a staff perspective. But, the idea is every week. And so what we can sort of map out is, and right now, it's up to you all. This is your committee. I originally thought we would go walk out right now. We can do that, or, and I can do it informally if you want, but otherwise, that's not gonna work well. But, well, let me put it this way. We should either adjourn here, or we all go on a walk. I'm hesitant to go on a walk without y'all having the opportunity to have access to the resources that we talked about today, so that you can sort of essentially do a little homework, better understand, you know, the size of the sites, what people have said in the past. We can give you a little more context. And then what you can do next week is, when you meet, is try to identify, you know, confirm as a group, all those issues that you think should be resolved. Okay, whether it's questions you have or a category of concern, it's clear we're gonna worry about cost. We're gonna worry about, you know, the number, the height, whatever it may be. But come up with your list so that I think that's gonna be helpful for the council to see, oh, okay, they looked at this. And then so the identification of all the questions that have to be answered would be helpful if you can nail that down by next week. Because essentially what you want to be in a position of doing is being able to ask for help after next week for the consultants or anybody else that needs to be engaged immediately, so that we can meet the 60-day deadline. Does that make sense? Or
Now, if I want to put something out to can I just email everybody?
No,
Sunset.
so what
Well,
you'll
it's
need
public,
to do
so-
is,
Or sunset.
Can I get a city hall address or something?
there's not really a mechanism to do that. It would have to be publicly done here. If there's something, information you want delivered, what you can do is you can deliver it to staff and print it out and deliver it at the meeting. But it would, you'd essentially be very, it's very gray. So I would not recommend that.
can we send an email to people with information, like you or me, send it to them?
You can send it directly to staff. We cannot, no, that's using a third party to distribute information.
Can we distribute information without,
If it's independently sourced. So
okay,
if
like
it's
me
received
saying
from
we're
someone,
gonna send you certain things during this meeting, I'm allowed to send them certain things?
we are absolutely allowed
Yeah.
as staff.
But he can't send it to you and then you send it to all of us.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Although you could present it to us at an open meeting.
And
Yes.
then it could be
He can
sent,
send it to
and then it
staff.
could be
It could
emailed.
be
My
done
point is
from
that gives us 7 more
next week,
meetings.
isn't it?
That there's 7 more meetings to wrap this up. Before you
Less
leave.
than that, actually. So the council meeting that it's supposed to be at will be September 22nd.
So 5 more meetings.
Yeah,
That's,
so it's tight. 2, 3,
that's not 60 days, but
4, 5.
No, not even.
Well,
So
60
60
days
days
from
from
the last
the
council meeting.
resolution created.
And so, like, I'm ready to make requests today, as far as like, I wanna know what's wrong with that site. I wanna know if there's a vault under it, so if we're gonna recommend that, and can we suggest now that FinFrock start evaluating the garage, or
they can't be involved.
who's our backup?
Nobody.
So who would be the fact finder?
Here, it's then gonna end up being staff, because if you bring in a FinFrock,
And they can't.
FinFrock poisons the well, they
can't
can't
bid
then
on it.
bid on it.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna, and you definitely, FinFrock is the biggest garage builder around here, and they do the
We don't
precast.
want- yeah.
We do not
So
want them.
city council, even beyond us, can't say to FinFrock, we want you to do this garage?
I thought we
Well,
had
this is
somebody
gonna
on
be
staff
up
has
for
some.
RFP.
And they can bid.
No one sends it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
City
we're gonna get
council
to, it's not
can.
gonna, yeah. Well, we can get, the questions you have likely been raised in the past. And we
Yeah.
will coordinate with our other staff who are very familiar with what happened then, and if we can't find the answers, then we can reach out to those who we know are not gonna be part of the RFP.
In communicating, you said communicate with staff.
Yes.
What email address?
So you can email me or Nathan,
Okay,
and we will get it to the correct party if you want the answer.
okay.
And we'll get answers for
And
you.
then your response will be to
Could we
all
get your
of us.
email address?
Yeah, I'll send it all to you. I'm CC'd on everything that was sent out.
Okay,
So,
Send
Zane or
it,
Tal-
anything you said, don't send it just to Zane and don't send it just to me.
okay.
Yeah.
Send it to us both.
we can
Got it.
track it down.
But this is a fair ask, so like it,
Yes,
and we would have to make it, basically, we have to nominate that question and then be seconded, right?
No, that's
We can
not-
just add it to the agenda.
That's
Okay.
for only motions is those kind of things.
I'm just saying, if we have 5 meetings, Rocky, to come up with, even if we all agreed it's gonna be one location or the other,
100%.
5 weeks is a short amount of time to say, all right, well, we all agree that it's the city hall site.
We're still
We're
not
not
picking.
that's not
a
even your
site.
job.
Well, no, I'm saying,
We're
even
making the
if,
best 2 sites as best as possible.
but even if we have to go, now we have to engage FinFrock for any changes we would like to see to make the best suggestion for 7th and Mineola, right?
No,
No,
we
no,
don't
we
engage
don't talk to
them.
them.
So a brand new firm
Yes.
that has to come into this and
Yes.
evaluate, the only thing we
No,
have
no,
is.
no, we're just making the recommendation and then they
Right.
send it out to a bunch of firms.
Well, once it
We
goes to
could
council,
recommend
it will be,
I mean, I literally can get on, I can get on
buildings that
chat
look like
and go,
Finrock
make me a garage,
behind
looking
City
at it
Hall.
from an angle. So,
Can you-
I mean,
Okay.
it's not,
Yeah,
we have
Yes.
design firms on, community services that will be doing the pictures.
Yeah,
So
we're
that's
we're
what
just,
concept
we're just
is.
saying, we believe
garage.
the city hall site is the best site. Here's what we want it to.
Lambie
What-
garage.
We'll end up
hold on,
showing
hold
the
on.
best of both sites to city
Right,
council.
right, so I think that's what we need to figure out for next meeting is, we're gonna look at these 2 sites, we think that the garage should look like this, it should incorporate these key functions
On both sides.
on both
Yeah, I
sites,
think-
and then we go back to Zane, Zane gets with our rich staff, or our vendors that are on retainer
when we
to
say,
design.
like I said, our job is to recommend changes to both sites, or what both sites should look like, not which site is best.
Correct.
So, how do we, without using FinFrock and without talking to anybody directly, that's city staff's job, do we, in a paragraph, say we would like a parking garage to have these aesthetic features? And whatever else we can come up with, and that's the extent of what we submit, because,
Well, that's our next week, and then staff would then, in the week leading up to our next meeting, we would hopefully have some drawings to us to review and go, this looks good, we like this, we don't like this, change
Make
this, change that.
We want.
Yes,
But I would think we'd start with
These are,
features.
no, these are fresh designs, right? Like,
yeah, we can't use FinFrock's design.
so,
no, you could, but you can't talk to FinFrock.
Yeah.
You can go, okay, I like
We
FinFrock's
can
design, but
reference that design with other designers.
But we have a request for you have a request for information out, right, or,
an
That's
RFI.
right, for somebody else, but it's not our job to be perfect.
Mhm.
It's our job to give concepts of what you would like to see.
Yeah. We should have 2 or 3, minimum 2 concepts for each location.
right.
I think a good
You mean a drawing.
exercise.
No, a picture. Essentially, it's going to look something like this. That's it. That's what the designer is going to do. It's a conceptual design.
I was wondering, if that's,
Type in.
again,
Right, we're
5
not gonna
weeks.
get into the
It's
weeds of
5
full
weeks.
engineered
How do we get our concepts into reality?
Gotcha.
Glenwood.
So what we can
Glenn.
do is if everyone wants to individually
CLT.
send us, what
CLT.
your
Park-
ideas
there you
are over the next week,
Parking
Mhm.
garage.
we can, have them all.
In Oregon?
So
Okay.
architecture magazine right
Serve
there.
everyone else's,
That one.
ideas instead of
Picture.
discuss them.
Okay.
So you all wanna send 5 ideas?
Yeah.
Over email for the next week, so we can discuss those, so whatever its priorities are, please do not CC anyone else on the, emails.
Gotcha.
That
Well,
would be
we
a
were all blind copied, so we're all good.
Beautiful.
So, sort of how this started, just so y'all know where I came from on this.
Well, that's a beautiful garage.
So this
Let's
is the
build
garage.
that.
This is the garage I
I'm
started
done.
with.
All that glass.
Carson.
Florida? No,
So
it's
this is done out of laminated wood. So it was a really cool concept. I went super deep into this. This is where started. This is what my concept was to have at 7th Street in Neola. It was like, this is cool. People are going to drive here to see it. It's the coolest garage I've ever seen. It's never been built, by the way. It was a concept. But anyway, so I think some of what we can do is say, hey, we like these architecture pieces, that can go on these. So back to what you were talking about is, do we like it? Do we like the glass? Do we, there are different things, and you can think outside of the box. How do we put pieces onto it? But like I said, this was where I started with a parking garage, and so there's lots of stuff out there, but yeah, looking at it from a sustainable wood structure, so there was a cool factor to it. Nobody had ever done.
And then one other thing I want to share as well.
That's
So
very Santa Fe.
I'm in
Exactly.
in my line of work, we do large resort conference style hotels, which includes parking structures. Our current price right now is about $20,000 to $25,000 per parking stall for a cast in place. So that's different than Finn Frog's precast, where they just bring in panels that get bolted together into the structural steel of that. So when you get into the weeds of like, it looks like this, it's got some weird designs into it, then you're starting to get into cast in place, and then that number gets there. So you said 365 spots, that's $7.5 million at $20,000 a stall. So just for reference.
Yeah.
What was that per stall?
20 to 25,000.
So
per-
23.5.
Okay.
And that's from Well Grove Building Company, which is one of the largest builders here in Central
Do
Florida.
we need to add to our discussion whether we feel it should be free or fee-based?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that comes out.
So
That's the city council will have to worry about that?
So where I landed on that was to send that back over to the CRA, because the CRA oversees downtown, and if they want to make those recommendations, if they want to charge for it, let's just put that in their lap, and that way we don't have to be the bad guys. But there's going to be an argument over whether I think people should pay. There needs to be a level of pay.
No, it should be everywhere. Even at the beach, like when I'm out running in the morning, it is full of people that are there running and biking.
Can we
And
bring
if you
back
look, they're all
parking fees and
Orange
more?
County tags.
What's Winter Park or Winter Garden do?
It's all free.
But it's a totally.
You get what you pay for.
Well, I think you've, like, what works for Clermont. I think we kind of have to discount, Winter Park, Winter Garden. Can I ask, so, and this is more just personal, so when the hotel gets built, what is their required parking? Are they gonna use the parking garage? Can we charge them to use the, like?
It's going to pay us $3,000
So he has no parking.
per spot.
So he has no parking requirement.
Then he'll
Right. That is
use up that parking. I mean, it's a great deal for him.
So how do we
Yeah.
change it?
That's council, or the CRA. We need
Okay.
parking management.
That's
Yeah.
council.
I mean,
So-
that's,
As an example, so if that hotel does get built, and how many hotel rooms? Anybody know?
It's small. It's a boutique. Like
30 or 40 probably.
under
So
50.
Yeah, I thought it was 48, but that's.
It's one parking spot per room.
which site is this?
It'll be all of.
On top of
It'll be on top.
where
8th
Patrick's
Street.
existing
Yeah.
building.
8th Street
Okay.
around to Montrose.
Montrose and,
So
or 8th and
So if he has no parking requirement,
No.
because he's gonna buy his way out of it.
You can buy your way out of it. And this process will bring realistic value to the parking, the cost of parking in the downtown. $3,000 is
Yeah,
not
it's
gonna cover the
probably,
cost of a
in
parking
hindsight,
space.
it's probably too cheap. What I'm saying is that if he's maxed out 30 boutique hotel rooms, staff of 4 or 5 on at any one time,
Oh, no. I think
that's
it's-
40, but let's just say it's 40 spots
Right.
a night. Where are those people gonna park? Are they gonna park at the parking structure behind City Hall, 3.5 blocks away, or are they gonna park in the 7th and Mineola flat parking space? And take up all the spots for all the customers?
I believe there's a conversation about the community benefit agreement that needs to be fully fleshed out where parking is going to take place for that, so I don't have an answer yet.
Okay.
Make it valet it and put the cars in the garage.
Okay.
and that's where I would think
That's where
that
it's
it's
gonna
at.
head.
That's where, yeah.
Because they had an agreement with Clermont Brewing Company with the church across the street. And that's how they got approved. And then that changed when the church decided to build a school. and they lost a lot of their spots. So now all that got dumped out onto the street or elsewhere. And I assume they would park in the city hall parking garage, or they park there now. So that's what I mean. These agreements are they're not static, or they're not permanent. They're kind of they're flexible down the road when another agreement is made for additional, like I said, they had the church and then they didn't.
So just so everybody knows, the parking fee was me.
And you talk,
And the reason the parking fee got put in there was to allow businesses to expand. So what we wanted to be able to do was, any of these single-story buildings, be able to go up to a second story that easily and not have to deal with parking issues. And some of this comes into the CRA. What's the CRA's rate on taxes? It's significantly higher, 10%.
it's significantly higher in the CRA.
Or 10 mil. I think it's a 10 mil. And so,
No, it's the same tax bill. It's
So-
just that the CRA gets it.
yeah, so by increasing that CRA revenue, it helps with that parking garage. And that's why I leaned on having the CRA manage it, is because it comes in under them. And that way, the people who are the taxing agent and the people who are running the parking are the same people, and they have to balance their budget that way. So there was a method behind that madness, to allow management all in one spot and oversee it, and then they're responsible. So if they say, we don't want to charge for parking, well, they're gonna have to figure out how to come up with that $10,000 a month nut for the parking garage, because some of this is gonna get bonded. I mean, city council's not gonna come off $12 million, they're just not gonna. So, maybe they do 6 and they bond 6 and they go, but that's not for us.
Was the parking fee conceptualized with the idea that there would be a parking garage one day? Downtown, or?
That was mine. Oh, yeah. And let the CRA, and when the conversations with Friend Frock was that, have it built so that the technology is there, some of what Nathan was getting to, so that you can say as use increases, prices go up, so you have that fluctuating, and you can build that into whatever system you have there.
Is the CRA allowed to run a parking structure?
Yeah, it's their money.
Yeah, but I mean, in the old days, there were only certain things the CRA could do by statute. And I didn't know if running parking structures was one
Can
of
you
them.
be insured for that?
I don't know, it's, the CRA, the state may dissolve the CRAs. Anyway.
Either way, it's their dollars,
ChatGPT says yes.
so it's their dollars.
Then it must be true.
Yeah, so it's their dollars, they're the ones who have to control it. But so going back to the reason that we set it at 3,000 was to, let's get some movement on these other little buildings. 3,000 was an easy number, and the idea was that if we could increase the value of existing buildings by increasing the height, that we could increase the dollars going into the CRA, which could then fund more parking. So there was kind of a longer term look at it, but I know that 3,000 does sound low.
In the nineties, it was 1,500. And downtown was depressed, so they did away with it to encourage business to come downtown. And then what, 2,000 something, you brought back to,
I think you need to write a history book.
so it's
We all
coming
know what's
well.
going on here.
How many current parking spots are
We already answered that.
at 7?
Oh,
I thought
That's
you were
about
asking the
100.
entire-
So what about right now currently behind us?
About 100.
Okay, so about the same. Because we have to factor in,
You're losing 100.
well, and if we build at City Hall and Jason develops his, we lose that too. Maybe not immediately.
But Jason may not want to develop it. And the agreement will end up, it's just gonna be a parking lot. That's why
But that's the thing too,
Just,
if the city builds this garage and Jason doesn't wanna do it, highest and best use is not a surface lot. Does the city sell that lot
he can't,
to somebody who can sell
he
it?
has an agreement with it. So there is a.
Well, that's the thing, if Jason doesn't wanna do it, just because you have an agreement doesn't mean agreements can change.
he has to agree to make.
That's
that
what I'm saying,
decision.
I mean, there's, that could always happen down the road.
Right.
No, I mean, my thought, I guess my thinking is he would buy it back and then develop it, cause that would be the big issue.
Remember, if he does that and we lose the De Hoya property to whatever development goes in there, that's almost 200 spots in the heart of where people shop and eat downtown.
Yeah.
At that point, though, you probably have enough revenue to justify additional parking structures, so.
Where-
Yeah, but
Well,
where
it's,
they go.
it's taken
you have
10
to
years
buy
even
it.
to get
No,
this
you
far.
don't.
I don't
The
think
old police station.
a second structure, I might be, you know,
Cost of
I might
time
be
to
walking
square
with a
off
cane
that
by the time
entire
that
corner
happens.
and rebuild the whole thing.
Does he own the old police station?
He sure does.
Well,
Okay.
well, then the old post office, I mean, we're just, I mean, I'm just,
So,
again,
and we have talked to the guy on the post office, so, like I said, I'm,
does the post office not own that?
no, so
No.
it's a guy out of Jersey.
Oh, it's a ground lease
It's
or
an
something?
old guy out of Jersey who's like, well, you know, why don't you just, eminent domain it? And I'm like, no, we're not eminent domain in the post office.
All right.
Are we done?
I think we're done unless, you guys wanna have a conversation or anything else.
I'd like to add one last thing. I think a good exercise going into the next meeting will be kind of think about it as we're building a garage, no matter what, on both sites. What features do you want to see in both of those sites to make it the best garage possible? Don't worry about the cost at this point. What is your key features you want on those sites?
And it's funny, cause that might be the recommendation I would come up with, we need 2 garages
Build both.
right now, you know, and do both, you know.
Well, that's fine, but
You also believe in unicorns, that's right.
I do,
remember, you guys say like, okay, we're gonna get a visualization overnight or something. It takes a while for somebody to come up, a designer to come up with what is a
Yeah,
realistic
that was my
concept.
worry with 5 meetings
So,
ago.
Yeah,
so
you
once
could do it
again,
overnight.
it just means that it's, what's the designer want? The designer wants you to tell them what your priorities are. They don't want you to say, I want the best looking garage of all time at the very cheapest cost. Okay, remember, what is it, good? You know, you can have good,
Good, fast.
cheap and fast, and you get 2 out of the 3. So they need good direction. That's why I was trying to focus on just what are those criteria? What do you want to say about each one of them? And so go look at them, think about them. But I don't think we have anything else to discuss today, and I don't want to walk the site right now.
Well, I mean,
'cause
we're all gonna walk out the door, you're gonna see it, take a right when you leave the parking lot, you'll see it again, the other side.
No, it's not just seeing, it's understanding the context of how it impacts the properties around it. Just in the same way that if we looked at the, when we look at the visualizations they've already done, they're not, you wouldn't want to have your building across the street and on some of the sides of those. You'd like the parking, but you may not like the structure and what it does to your business or your home.
Tim, I did get clarification, that walkway that would go in front of your building, from garage to your 5-foot walkway in front of yours is 18 feet.
18 feet.
Yep, so there'd be a 10-foot dedicated paver with grass strip on each side or whatever strip on each side, so there'd be 18 total feet, so it wouldn't be on top of your.
Okay, so I think you guys can just.
Motion to adjourn? Second.
Favor.
Aye.
Look up,
This is. Man, you knew parking would be this much fun.